This conference will now be recorded.
I call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Under additions to the agenda, I just wanted to note that we will be deferring other business items 7.2 for September Committee of the Whole. So that will be one change. But ask at this time if there are any other additions to the agenda this evening. Okay, so I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda with the one change.
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor McQuarrie. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Coin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? The agenda is approved with the one change. I just want to take a quick minute to acknowledge that today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And I just want to thank Council for permitting the raising of the Mi'kmaq Nation's flag. That's flying currently outside the town hall. We'll move on now to presentations. We do have 3 presentations this evening. We will be starting with Nova Scotia Health. So I will turn things over to you. And if you would like, you can make an introduction to council. And I trust you have your clicker thingy in hand. Very good. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Over to you.
Thank you, Chisholm, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to come and speak. Just want to just introduce our team. So my name is Brett Fiddle. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Eastern Zone. I have a new role for myself. I just started maybe 5 weeks ago. Prior to that, I was the Executive Director of Operations for Eastern Zone. And live in North Sydney, but my office is based out of Sydney. And I'll just go to my left here.
Dr. Don Ryan, I'm the Medical Executive Director for Eastern Zone. I'm a big surgeon. I'm practicing in Sydney for the last 25 years. I've been in this position for 1 year now, so I don't have the sitting excuse me. That may happen. So we're glad to be here and just to share some information. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela MacArthur. I'm the Director of Integrated Health for the rural sites in the Eastern Zone. And I've been around a little while. My office is in Inverness, and I'm just finishing up the role this week in a couple of days. And I'll let Andrew introduce himself.
Andrew Heighton, currently the last 2.5 years I've been the Director of COVID Response for Eastern Zone at MSH. And starting on Thursday, I'll be taking over Angela's position as Director of Integrated Rural Health for the Eastern Zone, based out of Antigonish.
And just additionally, sitting behind me is Rose Isaac. She's the site facility leader at the Straight Richmond Hospital, and Megan Smith is the Director of Public Relations for Eastern Zone. So that's our team. So tonight we'll just do a sort of a presentation, information sharing in relation to health services, particularly at the facility within Straight Richmond Hospital. And Dr. Ryan will give an update on physicians around the area, and Angela will present on the model or the model care change, just newly introduced as a temporary change just at the end there. I want to jump to the next slide. So just on the slide here, you can see just it's our overview of the Straight Richmond Hospital. We want to clarify that our goal here is to maintain the Straight Richmond Hospital as 24/7 emergency department with the 20 beds fully active. Obviously, we've had some challenges over the last several months and probably the last number of years in relation to maintaining those services, but that is our ultimate goal to ensure that those services, it's a key piece of infrastructure for our health system here in Eastern Zone and provincially, and just wanted to make sure we made that statement and we're clear about that. You can see in relation to the emergency department, Dr. Hanswell currently is the only physician who regularly provides emergency room coverage. It's generally 48 hours in intervals, so he does 48-hour stretches, and the ED is open based on his availability at this point in time. We still look at any opportunities for physicians who are interested in doing emergency care there, and we continue in relation to trying to seek those services. The inpatient unit, we have 3 hospitalists currently, Dr. DeRoche, Dr. Pluta, and Dr. Collins. Just a word of note that Dr. Pluta has indicated that in July he's going to take a leave. However, he will continue to cover inpatient coverage. And just in relation to the staffing, and you can see on the board there's in the emergency department, there's 10 positions. We have currently 2.4 vacancies with 1 new hire pending. The inpatient registered nurses is where we're currently having quite a bit of difficulty with 7.4 positions, and 7 of those are vacant. And Angela will touch on that when we talk about the temporary changes to the model of care there. We do have float RN positions there as well, so that float RN is an additional resource within the facility that's shared amongst the services. We have 4 positions. Unfortunately, we have 3 vacancies there currently. Licensed practical nurses, LPNs, and we can see that we have 12.9 positions there. 5 are vacant. We do have 2 new hires pending, and so in a bit better position in relation to licensed practical nurses. CCAs, you can see there's 6 positions, 2 vacant, 2 pending hires. Lab technologists, which is a challenge within the zone and provincially, but luckily we have that position filled. And with medical lab assistants, there's 3 positions and 2 vacancies. And if you look at the diagnostic imaging there, 4 positions filled, 1 recent addition. Just try to expand the service to the weekends, so we're not trying to call people back on overtime and sort of straining the workforce there. So we've made an investment there. And you can see just in the top corner there around recruitment and what we're trying to achieve there. It's basically recruitment in all aspects and trying to entertain where regulated providers can be utilized, where non-regulated providers can come into play. Looking to see if we can add in advanced care paramedics, emergency support aides, and again that's in relation to supporting the team where we have the amount of vacancies that are identified there on the overview. It is an ongoing challenge in relation to ED positions in particular. We do have challenges in other communities in relation to that. And with the registered nurse vacancies and our recruitment initiatives, we do offer a maximum amount of initiative incentives by way of $5,000 per year, up to a maximum of 3 years, so $15,000 plus relocation allowances. And so we almost never just post a regular position, now we almost go right to the maximum incentives if that's what people are interested in. We do have a new posting that's created for a clinical nurse educator position, and that was based on feedback we heard from many of the junior staff. We've had a lot of meetings as of late over the last 6 months by way of meeting with staff there, human resource staff, their interprofessional practice team. Angela is the director, Rose, and many others, trying to understand where we can improve, what the staff, the frontline are saying, by what supports they need, suggestions that they may have. So really trying to understand what it is that may help improve recruitment there and retention. We've also, as I suggested, tried to introduce advanced care paramedics, again, as a support to the emergency department, and CCAs, again, are there to help provide care requirements to patients and allow the regulated providers to focus on their work. In relation to some of the successes that we're having there, we most recently have had renovations, and thanks to the foundation and the community, well needed upgrade in relation to space, functionality, flow, and a lot of input and feedback. And I would say challenges Rose had to work through with renovations through a pandemic and supply chain issues and And I think we're getting there and hoping to have a grand opening in the fall. So that's exciting for the facility and the community. And then just, significant investment in health building infrastructure. So Nova Scotia Health funded to overhaul the air handling system, replaced increased hot water capacity, for example. So those things that may have been dated and really trying to upgrade the infrastructure at the site. Mental health virtual assessments for urgent care were introduced this winter. Again, really trying to prevent patients where a virtual appointment sort of keep the patients within their home community, not have to have them travel into Sydney or Antigonish for those types of services. So really trying to leverage virtual care where possible. And that was, that's one of the positives of the pandemic is our ability to move into that platform where we may not have had that agreement in the past. We're increasing pharmacy support, and that was recently approved, and so added a pharmacist and a pharmacist tech, both permanent jobs. And again, that's really to help support the team. In the past, nursing staff may have been responsible to do some of these roles and responsibilities, so really trying to take away those that work that's maybe not nursing necessarily. And the pharmacist has started this week. On-site security started this week, this winter story, and that was based on some patients and staff safety rounds that we did the year previous. And I think the staff are feeling safer and more supportive by way of that. And again, as I mentioned, just the support from the foundation and auxiliary and the community has been fantastic. So even though we're going through several challenges, there are certainly some positives that we want to highlight and make note. I think the other recent success, and we hope to build on that, is some recent communication, collaboration, paper itself, so recruitment for healthcare professionals. That's ongoing and absolutely necessary. If you look at some of the successes that we had, some of the challenges in say Canso and Godsburg, was really that community collaboration and work with community leaders, with health. And I think you'd see that right across this province and other provinces that we've communicated with, that we can offer jobs, we can offer incentives, but really that's one aspect of recruitment. Community plays a big role in being able to support recruitment and then retaining our healthcare providers. So hoping to have increased involvement and collaboration with that group. I think we touched on some of the challenges around recruitment and retention, certainly access, with the emergency department not fully functioning, certainly access over that, primary care access, nursing turnover, as we mentioned, and it's evident on the vacancies. EHS, and they're a partner of ours. We don't necessarily manage EHS, but we certainly highlight any challenges that we have and we work with them to see if there's any opportunities to collaborate or improve the services that they support us with. I think this speaks to recruitment, and it's right across, I think, the province is lack of housing. It's a significant challenge when you're trying to bring in somebody new, and maybe there's nowhere to rent or nowhere to buy. And we know that that's something of a concern locally, and it's not just in this community, but something that I think we need to look into further. And the long-term care wait times is something that's been impacting, I think, right across the province, and it's in the news. So there's no secrets there that the long-term care sector has struggled significantly with the pandemic and staffing and resources, and they're trying to build their system back up, but there's a portion of patients that are residing in acute care, and there's some complexities with that. So the next steps for us is really ongoing evaluation of introducing a new model of care, and we'll have Angela speak to that. So perhaps maybe I'll hand it over to you, if you want to mention touch base on the position of recruitment.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brett. I mentioned I've been 25 years as surgeon in Sydney, so I'm intimately familiar with this hospital. There's a slide that you want to answer. And I do clinics here on a regular basis, so I know all the staff. You know, when I call, I speak regularly with emergency physicians. It's a very busy hospital. It's in a crucial pivotal area. The number of people it serves in this location, it is a pivotal hospital for us. And so currently there's we have 4 physicians that are, except for Dr. Okegu, they're mostly mid to late career. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Collins is officially retired. If not, he signed his retirement form, but he's very close. Dr. Pluta, Dr. Marchand, they're still very busy. They're no longer wanting to do the emergency care they've done in the past, and that's completely understandable. So basically, we're in succession planning for them. That's where we are now. We have the practice-ready assessment physicians. These are usually individuals who practice outside the country, international graduates. They come here, they get their appropriate license and credentialing. They undergo a kind of a training program or an assessment for 3 months, and if they're felt to be satisfactory and meet the competencies that we require, we allow them to work in the community. So it's a small portion of the province, but it's everywhere in the province, and particularly here, we've got we have the one of these craft doctors with practice-ready assessment positions coming in the fall. We're looking forward to that. Ongoing recruitment. That's very aggressively recruiting all across the province, all across the country, across the world. It's again for these practice-ready assessment programs. So that's kind of what we're doing for the Port Hawkesbury area. In the Airchat, there is the one vacancy there. They have the father and son team there. They're providing excellent care, and we anticipate another practice-ready assessment position there in the fall as well. And the same thing, we're recruiting, we're getting, if we get people out to Airchat and they like the community, like there's a chance they can stay there. We've had pretty good success with people coming through there. And in Lord Ways, Dr. McCormick, he's there. There's still, we're in the position for a prep position there as well. And we're simply, it's ongoing recruitment there. We're encouraging the family medicine residents. There's a 2-year family medicine training program after medical school. And we're encouraging these individuals to come to these centers to get very good rural experience, a different experience that we get in the larger city. They are coming here, and the hope is we get more to come. They'll see the place, they'll stay. So that's kind of where we are right now for the physician. Unfortunately, as Brett said, in years gone by, we have close to a full complement of emergency room physicians, and we simply don't have that now because of the situation of this hospital in Inverness and Badek. It's a unique hospital because we need a real specialized doctor. We need someone who can be a family doctor. We need someone who can be an emergency doctor. We need someone who can take care of people in the hospital, and we need someone who can take care of people in the long-term care facilities. So we're looking for kind of a particular individual, and we're also looking for an individual that wants to live in this community or a community like this. So it does make recruitment difficult, but we're working aggressively to try and address that. Unfortunately, we're not alone. The other communities in Cape Breton, the other communities in the zone, the other communities in the province, are all having the same issue. So, we are working hard. I think we have a plan in place. We have a good team of people in place who are working toward this as well. I'll just leave it with the physician side of it.
And I can review our temporary model. And this was the model that was announced a couple of weeks ago. I think I'll start with the inpatient unit. So as Brett had mentioned, the inpatient unit would normally have had 20 inpatient beds. 15 of those were for what we would call medical patients, and 5 were considered restorative care. So those are for patients that we were getting ready to go back home, maybe providing more physio or rehab support. So temporarily, we have reduced that number of beds to 10. So it's about to 10 stable medical patients that are awaiting discharge, so that could be discharged to a long-term care facility or waiting to be discharged home. And we do have capacity for 2 to 3 palliative care patients as well. And just for awareness, you know, we had a lot of discussion around the types of patients we normally see in that inpatient unit, and we made those decisions reflective of the types of patients that we see at the Strait. We typically have, you know, a high percentage of ALC patients and patients waiting long-term care, as well as the palliative care patients who we would not want to see have to go outside the community to be cared for in another hospital. And again, that was due to the number of RN vacancies. We had to change the types of patients we were keeping to enable the different providers to care for those patients when we have less RNs on the unit. So the emergency department, a couple of weeks ago, officially, we also started what we call an overcapacity process or protocol. And that is where when the ER reaches capacity, we may have to close, and that's even when we would not have a scheduled closure. We may have a physician there. And we base that decision on, you know, the number of patients we have in the beds, how many empty stretchers we have, the number of patients that are registered and waiting to see a doctor. We look at the seriousness of the illness of the patients we're looking after, as well as the number of RNs we have on site or on that shift, as well as when the physician might be leaving, whether it's near the end of the shift or where we're at on his shift. As Brett had mentioned, Dr. Hansbob normally does 48 hours on at a time. So there will be times when we have to close the emergency department, unfortunately, on short notice, even when we have a physician, just based on our capacity to look after any more patients than what we already have. And again, you know, this is impacted by our inpatient unit. We will be maybe caring for more of those more acute patients in the ER for observation or for longer periods of time, which I would say at the Strait we always did typically, because again, we had more of those ALC patients in the bed. So, you know, but it is something that we officially have the nurses that they know they can follow this process. So when the emergency department is closed, we would continue to, you know, advocate for people to call 911, to call 811 for advice. Certainly to look at our Nova Scotia Health temporary closure website. We will have that updated as soon as we know of the closure. We have the sign outside in the park and the driveway, open and closed. And as well, we would encourage anyone to call the switchboard if they you know, need to know in a hurry. We have heard recently, Rose, through meeting with some of her community groups, some suggestions for improvements to maybe how we get that word out in community. So we have been looking into those suggestions, making sure all the local papers and radio stations, you know, get our notices, making sure 811 is updated on our closure. So if people call 811, they would know to advise who's calling that the hospital may be closed. Again, our goal is to return to that 24/7 emergency department, as well as having a back to our 20-bed acute medical inpatient unit. So ongoing, we will continue to evaluate this new model and how it's working. Other things we're doing, we are looking at targeted hiring, exploring international nursing hires. The ongoing incentives, as Brett had mentioned, for the return of service. We have reached out to all of the travel nurse companies that we have contracts with for Nova Scotia Health. We also have what we call a nurse locum program that we've reached out to nurses that do maybe similar to a locum physician would come and do some locum work. We also are exploring kind of new models of providing service. Virtual Care Nova Scotia, we're looking at a pilot project that started in Colchester Emergency Department, where some of the lower acuity patients are seen through a virtual physician, to help support the emergency room. So we are in discussions with that team. We've been meeting with them for a couple of months, but the last couple of weeks we started meeting weekly, and the team is actually coming next week to meet on site. So we're hoping that we can look at a model like the Strait that might work for the Strait, likely not exactly the same as what's happening in Truro. Also, Virtual Care Nova Scotia is expanding into Eastern Zone and will be expanding in this area as well, and looking at the patients or people that are on the need for a family practice, and will be offering virtual support through a virtual physician for the community as well. And again, just those are some of the ideas we're looking at, and again, looking to return as soon as possible to the 24/7 bridge.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were tapping anybody else on the shoulder for more. Okay, so I would now open up the floor for questions and discussion from council. And just before I do that, I would mention in terms of that community awareness, in terms of closure and opportunities to be able to see a physician or a nurse, to keep Strait Area Transit and also the taxi companies plugged in, because typically, they can get calls to go to the hospital. If they're aware that there's a closure, then you're going to save some money and time for folks. So who would like to, okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Point.
Your Worship. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Obviously, there's been a lot of thought put into this. There's no doubt that it's a hot topic in the area right across the province, not only here. A couple of points that I've written down listening to the presentation. One topic that was brought up was housing. So has Nova Scotia Health considered building whether it be a triplex or a quadplex close to Strait Richmond to entice doctors and RNs to come to that area? At least if we had that for them for a 1-year period, it wouldn't be such a strain on trying to find a place to live when you come here.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So healthcare dollars are not normally channeled toward housing. Certainly it's an important part of recruitment. It's not something right now that we have government giving us funding to go and secure housing for healthcare workers. I know in other communities within Eastern Zones across the province, there's collaboration with local leaders, local government around innovative ideas. So if you look down the South Shore, there's a credit union actually give a loan, no interest loan, and built a 5-unit complex with the intention of any healthcare provider coming in would be steered toward utilizing that complex, and they're getting a lot of positive feedback. And again, that's one idea. We do a foundation that supports some housing, but to answer your question, not right now do we be involved in relation to purchasing housing facilities for staff.
And I did hear some talk of international doctors. So I've spoken to 2 in the last couple of months who have practiced in other countries for an extended period of time. By extended, the least amount of time served was 28 years. They come to Nova Scotia, they try to get licensed here. They're told they have to take their exams over again, and they're saying after 30 years of being out of school, not a chance am I going back to school. So I think that the province needs to take a look on years served and try to make it easier for these doctors and more welcoming. Because we have 2 doctors in this area right now that would love to be at Strait Richmond Hospital and can't. And that's a little bit alarming to me. They're not willing to go through the schooling, and it's understandable. After 30 years in the profession, to go back and write an exam would probably be a little intimidating. The international nurses, I've dealt with 2 that were going to school in Sydney and they were coming up and working at the cloud group during their days off from school. Both went to Ontario to take their schooling because it's cheaper and quicker. So I think that's something the province needs to look at, is try to standardize our training in our process and make it as welcoming as possible. Now, these two nurses have gone to Ontario. When they're finished, they may or may not come back. Where they were already established here, they had homes rented, they had an employer, and they still chose to leave because Ontario seems to be geared a little easier for them to get their credentials.
So I can speak to the nursing. I'm a registered nurse profession. So part of that process may be that there's a regulatory body, College of Registered Nurses from Scotia. They may have different stipulations on education regulatory requirements versus maybe what Ontario has. We do have an interprofessional practice team that does do a bridging program with international nursing educated individuals. So it does depend on the country of origin, the education that they would have been trained. And it does depend, it really does depend on which country someone may be presenting from. And then the college takes into consideration where their training had occurred. And then they do an evaluation based on that person's experience and education. They look to create the potential of a bridging program for that person. So I can't speak to the individuals in particular. I don't know their background, and I'm not part of the college, so it would have to be a communication with the college. There may be some uniqueness with those two individuals in particular, but Don may be able to speak to the position piece.
Yeah, the position piece is very similar. It's certainly a lot of it, talk afterwards, share emails. If there's individuals out there, that are interested, we have recruiters available to talk to them, guide them through the system. Yes, licensing is the biggest headache, the biggest problem in this province and every province, because the licensing body is there for a reason. It's to ensure that the practicing doctor is competent, and we need to have competent people out there. And it is difficult. 30 years, we respect that 30 years, but they still have to go through this procedure or this series of events to get that license. So what we have a group now to try and support them, to get them through it. There's a number of different agencies that are out there that can help them. And sometimes if we just know of these individuals, then we can often get them talk to our recruiters and help them along the road. And that's something, that's one thing we can do. But that is an issue. Everyone has different training. Everyone has different experience. And I think we all agree that we can be very upset and critical of the Nova Scotia College of Physicians and Surgeons, but we have to trust them and guarantee them to ensure we have competent physicians out there. So I do respect them for that, but we have seen them shift, I think, a bit in the last 5 years. I think before it's black and white, and now I think they're starting to appreciate a shade of gray. And so I do see them move that way because they see the state we're in, and they see our needs, and they see some very valuable and respected people not being able to practice. And yes, we want to avoid a 30-year someone from doing. I agree with you. That's not. But the trick is to, we still need that person somehow to demonstrate to the college or to someone that they are capable of practicing. So that's where that loophole is. But I feel we do have some systems in place now that can help facilitate that.
Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
Just one other
Oh, no,
comment
sure.
to make, just in relation to the new nursing staff as well. As we did highlight, if they are finished and interested, they would qualify for the incentives that are out there. So relocation back, $15,000 of incentives for 3-year commitments if they're committed to coming back, and that's all available.
We'll have to make that sales pitch. Thank you. All right, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Thanks for your presentation. It's more of a comment than a question, and if somebody wants to comment at the end, it's fine. But we have two members of our council that are on the recruiting committee. And council supports that, has supported that committee over the last number of years. And I was listening to a podcast or something today from Halifax, and it was, they were saying that for every year, for the next 10 years, the province is going to need 100 doctors and 1,000 nurses for every year for the next 10 years. I mean, that's scary to hear. And I know, I read all the emails and the minutes of all the meetings from the Health Recruiting Committee, and they're very trying their hardest. So is there anything we can do besides, I know what Deputy Mayor talked about housing and that, but what is the best way to recruit in your mind? I know nobody's got the magical answer, obviously.
Or do you?
Or do you?
Angela's been quite involved in Scarborough and Canso, and I have been as well. And we're in a position there, many people may be aware, where we had to shut down the Canso facility at nighttime. I think we had 80% nursing vacancies there, and similar at Guysborough. And we were able to get the nursing staff back up, and same with the Guysborough facility. So we didn't do it by ourselves. I guess is the point I'm trying to make. It was collaboration with local leadership, so the group, a working group, so improvement working group. And it takes time. It takes effort and energy and some, ideas, sharing ideas, promotion of the local area, doing the connects on, spousal employment, what are some solutions to housing, all those things, making sort of an itemized list of what amenities are within the community, so that when it's almost like a welcoming package for anybody that you offer before they even come, and then when they do come, you sort of follow through on it. So I think that's some of the takeaways that we've had. And that wasn't perfect, but certainly I think when you bring in anybody who's a new healthcare provider and they see the collaboration between the health system they're going to work with and in the community that they're coming to, I think that shows them that there's commitment from many players and many organizations, and sort of offers a sort of welcoming environment versus everyone just sort of off doing their own thing. So I think we need to invest a bit more time and energy in our work with the local working group. To Angela's point, increase the cadence on how many times we're meeting and what ideas can be generated.
I will add that the municipality of Guysborough did add, they matched our incentives. I do think that made a difference. I'm not sure that it makes a difference in retaining past the 2-year return of service, I'll be honest. But I think it did make a difference for the recruitment. So they doubled ours, and we advertised that they matched it. So it was a $20,000 signing bonus for 2 years, as well as the relocation.
Where are they in that 2-year window? Like, so do they know, like, have they been able to retain?
Some have left. When we say some, small numbers, because it is small numbers. In Canso, I think it was four positions of 6 or something like that. So, but yeah, I think it did make a difference.
Did have an increment of success.
Yeah, we did at least 1 or 2 were international trained nurses that had gone through the program that Brett had talked about, the bridging program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Corey, do you?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. First question I have, well, if you go back to the first slide with the numbers of nursing at the end. Yeah. So just hearing this tonight in terms of numbers, it sounds like a very dire situation at the hospital. I guess hence the direction you're going. But so out of 22 RN positions that are supposed to be there, there's only is it 10.5 that are filled and there are 11.5 vacancies?
That's correct.
And out of the LPN, 12.4, 7.4 are filled and there's 5 vacancies.
Correct.
Okay.
That's two new hires.
So I'm saying it's dire, but you folks probably have known where these numbers have been for some time. Are these numbers relatively recent in development, or have they been like this for 6 months or a year?
I would say at least 6 months, but it's sort of slowly cascaded and reduced.
Or increased, is that what you mean in terms of the vacancies?
Yes, or yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the full-time employment reduced, yeah,
Right.
vacancies increased.
Yeah.
And I know Rose has been working with the team. I'm just trying to maintain access to the facility, but at some point in time, when you get down to certain numbers, you have to all of a sudden say, okay, what kind of strain are we placing on the remaining portion of the team?
Yeah.
And how do we make some modifications to at least allow them to have a reasonable workload? And then use that as sort of our beginning point again to see where we can start to build the team back up. And I think that's why you see some of the initial investments. It may not be nursing investments,
Yeah.
but it's those other allied health professionals to try and alleviate some of those other roles and responsibilities.
Mhm.
And our goal will be to allow those supports to be maintained when we start to increase the workforce here. So it's not to supplement for a period of time, it's to supplement permanently.
And I think I would add, they're not all permanent vacancies. Like all of them are not people that have gone and left completely. Some are leaves of absences that will return, hopefully, right? So anyway, so I can't get into why leave of absences, but they're not all regular full-time vacancies.
Mhm.
We tip across the zone, I would say we have a young staff and we have a lot of mat leaves, right? So, mat leave is at least a year. So those can add to the vacancies too temporarily.
Amongst the nursing staff, is there much turnover?
Yes, by way of the numbers.
It's not retirement, it's not, I mean, turnover, people leaving the hospital, it's their place of employment.
Yes.
Yeah, a fair portion of
So you
that.
mentioned earlier that working to understand what staff feel they need in order to be supported. So I guess I'm just curious, when you have staff leaving, are there exit surveys done with staff?
Yes. So that was when we mentioned the human resource team was
Yeah.
in to do exit interviews. And again, that was to help identify some of the pressure points that the staff were feeling and some of the investments that we've made.
Right.
There's some other things that probably team dynamics, those types of things that were identified as well. And that's why we brought in the interprofessional practice team to look at roles, responsibilities, professional expectations, those types of things. So really trying to bring in resources to support the team, understand where they are, understand where we want to be, and support them in that.
I'm going to just, like something that's obvious, it's going to be very difficult for the nursing staff is with so few of them, vacations. Do they get vacations? Do they take vacation? Shifts, how many double shifts are nursing staff having to do, like, because of the shortage of staff? If somebody calls in sick, you can't always get somebody new coming in, so somebody's already been working, it's going to be called upon, I'm sure it is called upon to do another shift.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a system-wide occurrence, unfortunately, right now at this point in time. I would suggest that even prior to pandemic, we had HHR problems. I think the pandemics exacerbated that issue, and certainly causing some problems for us by way of ensuring that people are getting vacations, but we're day to day, week to week, month to month working on that to try and alleviate some downtime for people.
So when the unit is decided it's at capacity, so no more patients to come in to be triaged. So I'm assuming that EHS is contacted to say we're not open now, and if any patients are being picked up, you're having to go St. Martha's or wherever, is that right?
Correct.
So it's an extremely challenging situation. I just was curious in terms of the description of the beds, Angela, that you provided in terms of, we have 15 medical beds and 5 restorative care beds. That's what was looked at in terms of the hospital. And now with this model, looking at 10 acute care beds and 10 kind of transition beds in terms of being palliative care or waiting for transfer to another hospital or waiting for admission to a nursing home. Is that correct?
So we have reduced from 20
Yep.
to 12 to 13. So 10 of them are those stable medical patients that are awaiting discharge. And then 2 to 3, the capacity for 2 to 3 palliative care patients.
So there is a portion of those that are vacant instead of full.
So how many are closed?
7, 8, depending on whether we have the 12 or 13.
So out of the 20 beds, 7 or 8 are closed.
Correct.
And again, that's based on a nurse to patient ratio and providing safe patient ratio.
So when the outpatient is at capacity, and if there's 7 or 8 beds closed, you don't have the ability to move people into the inpatient unit. That's right.
And hence the need for a temporary model whereby we have gone over capacity and that triggers a number of moves, which is, shutting down the ER, contacting EHS, and placing any patients on temporarily from that facility.
Great, thank you.
Councilor McIver?
Yes, Your Worship, through you. Thank you for your presentation. I guess I just have one question, and it's to do with the emergency department. And I know you're all aware that we have a lot of heavy industry in the area, and times car accidents with multiple industries. And you talk about 10 beds in the emergency, and you get down to 1 bed vacant. If something like that was to happen, is there a plan, I guess, to treat patients and transport out of Straight Richmond at that time if we had an emergency?
If the department was open, so if they didn't trigger the protocol to close, so for instance, I think the other night, they had 11 patients and 10 beds. So do the math, you have 1 more person and then you have beds. And you got a call, I was speaking with Rose on the phone, and the request from the team was, we can't manage any of the patients. And that was triggered by a patient being brought in by EHS for assessment. So in your circumstance, if the 1 bed was open and you didn't trigger the protocol, then the patient would come there, it would be treated, stabilized, and probably sent to the next location. But with the protocol activated, we would call EHS, and then we would understand that there's no flexibility at the site. They would transport to the next nearest facility, which is normally St. Martha's.
Yeah, so if the 10 beds were utilized, you would be closed. But if there was 1 open,
If there was one open,
would you be able to handle, like there could be 10 patients in an emergency with staffing, if it was there, to get them stabilized and transported out? Or would you communicate right away that you only have the 1 bed and the arrangements would be made to ship right to St. Martha's?
Yes, yeah, and that's circumstance if we had, I would say more than a few patients, say it was a multiple vehicle NBC, then we would look at, EHS would contact us as administrator on call, so we have someone on call 24/7. They would say, look, this is what happened in this area. We know there's been challenges at the Straight Richmond Hospital. What's the state of affairs there? That communique would happen while the patients are on scene. And then we would look to say, okay, look, that facility cannot manage that level of patient complexity and or number. And we would have to then mobilize EHS and the zonal positioning system that they use with the grid. They would have to move in under other assets, and most likely we have to call St. Martha's for a heads up that the number of patients and patient type and or EHS lifeline can be activated as well. And they can land right on the scene. So there's other triggers and processes in play for that type of event that happens.
That's great. That's all I was concerned about, is to make sure things were in place for that. If something did happen,
Emergency.
emergency, because of the industry, and I've dealt with that in the past. And I also want to thank you for your efforts in recruitment. And if there's anything that you can pass on to myself or the mayor that we can help out with, we'll certainly talk about it around this table. So thank you very much.
Thanks, council, and certainly they're great comments and great questions. I don't think there's one person in this room that wouldn't think this is a very untenable situation. We would very much like to see that target to be opened again and providing the appropriate level of care for all of the communities in our surrounding region. We haven't had formalized conversations at the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health table yet, but we do have an upcoming meeting on Thursday. So chances are likely we'll be communicating through Rose or whoever in ways that we can help, like how do we get back to the, I guess, the level of care that our citizens require. And at the end of the day, I was just looking at the numbers on that slide that Councillor McQuarrie had asked to bring back up. And I know we do have former elected officials with us. We got Joe over there, and this was a situation that, was pretty significant back in 2012 and still is. So, like Councillor McDougall said, like there's no magic solutions, but at the end of the day, I think that we are going to have to start really considering some think outside the box type solutions. Deputy Mayor O'Coin mentioned housing. I mean, we know that's a huge roadblock. It's a huge roadblock, even for locums. It's a huge roadblock. So at the end of the day, I'm hoping that we can use that grassroots community group, Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health, to really kind of, think outside the box. Think innovatively. Like, it might not be things that the province there typically do, but I think we're going to have to start coloring outside the lines a little bit to try to look for some real solutions, and that we'll get Straight Richmond Hospital opening to provide that important patient care that we need for the region. But I thank you very much for your time, and of course. Melissa, hopefully will have all your contact information. So if there are any questions coming forward from council, perhaps we can do so via email. And
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
Thanks for the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
No questions from the other?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sure there's.
No, I have a question. Mark, thanks for the presentation. All the emphasis seems to be on recruitment. Where recruitment is really poaching from somebody else. You get a doctor, he comes in, he's a whole. When I graduated from university, anyway, there was 20 people in my graduation class. All of us had 3 to 4 jobs. And the university saw the need, and what they did is they just geared up to handle more and more students. When my daughter graduated the same program 10 years ago, there was over 75 medical students. And today I bet there's over 100. So I'd like to know how the universities are addressing the problem, or are they? That's all. That's my question.
No, it's a good
Thanks,
question. Thank you. We've been working with the province and the universities by way of registered nurses. So you may have heard 3 years ago, they increased the seat allocation at CBU in particular. And then most recently, we increased the number of seats. I think it was 28, focused on that, but in the 20s for CBU, St. Max and Dalhousie. So the government has listened to us and is investing.
But that's 20 out of how many? Well, what percentage of doctors are being turned out now compared to 10 years ago?
Yeah, no, sorry, that's his nursing resource. Yeah.
Does anybody know what doctors?
think they increased the residency program by 25 seats. I don't know the numbers. We can get that number. Though.
That's
25%.
Schools will be-
We're building up to.
And here,
Hiring, bringing those educated people that are not qualified.
I personally love hearing some of the people that have worked in, over the years at Straight Richmond Hospital. This is so critical to our community. Speak up, please.
I'd like to thank you for the presentation. It's scary, very scary. I guess my question is, and maybe I missed it, I didn't hear anything about nurse practitioners and their role in this system. And also, I know that you hear a lot in the news about addictions and mental health and what a crisis. I worked straight in addictions and mental health for a long time when it opened there, and now it's gone. The inpatient program is gone. What happened to those beds that were there?
So those beds are still there. Those spaces,
For inpatients?
they're not currently being
No.
utilized.
No.
The mental health, addictions mental health program, I think, changed to a day unit.
Yeah.
Again, that's not my area of specialty, but.
But I'm just wondering if those beds could be utilized for, and I know, the nursing shortage. And the other question is, what happened, I'm old school, and I didn't graduate as an RN from university. I graduated from the School of Nursing. And I think most retired nurses did. Is that on the floor at all to bring back schools of nursing? 2 years?
I don't think it is based on my understanding. I think that's why you would have had the increase in seats across the board in all of the universities. And they do have some accelerated programs where they're entertaining licensed practical nurses and taking into consideration their 2 years of education and training and fast tracking them to only require 2 additional years. And I think some of those existing seats have been set aside for those licensed practical nurses to become registered nurses. So that'll help with that program, expedite the volume of nurses coming out. But I think it's fair to say that not just our own local universities, but need to entertain international graduates and just continue with our nursing with certain efforts, period. It's going to be a multifactorial type approach by building up the nursing workforce.
But what about the nurse practitioners?
Yeah, I have to follow up on nurse practitioners. I'm not sure what the state is in relation to if we have any in this location, but they play an essential role, and they've just changed their scope of practice to be able to admit, discharge, they and treat. So that's just a recent change, which is fantastic to allow them to work to full capacity. And they act, I think, as many people know, as a great collaboration by way of a collaboration physician practice, so that they can expand the ability of them to cover primary care. And we are looking at opportunities to see where they can help supplement inpatient coverage as well.
If I may, I think it's quite clear just from the questions that we're getting from the gallery that I think that what would be pertinent for this community, then obviously for Hawkesbury as a service center for health, along with Straight Richmond Hospital. I think that it would be great to have like a community-based like open house, like just so people can come in and ask these questions. What's the worst that can happen is that it could generate some grassroots solutions to some of the challenges that are facing us. So we certainly have to move on with our agenda, but we usually allot 15 minutes to each presentation, and like this was so important that we did take the full hour to dig into this. But it's quite.
Can I make one point?
Just because it's you, Joe. Just one more. You're going to finish us off
I don't
here.
mean to upset the apple cart. I've talked to staff at Straight Richmond Hospital and in ambulance, and We talked about recruitment, we talked about incentives, we talked about all kinds of things for the future, but we have to take care of the present. And I guess my question is, from what I'm hearing, and it's out in the streets, there's not a lot of happy people at the hospital. And the question is, are you aware of that? Or is it true? And if not, if it is true, what are you gonna do?
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I think that speaks to my earlier comments, just where, we had gone and spoke to the staff, the human resource team, the director of professional practice and their team, gone up again, that whole idea of listening to the staff. What are some of the challenges?
The turnover seems to be awfully high.
What's the feedback? So yeah, we've had those conversations, and we're going to continue to have those conversations and see what's required by way of improving the outcome there.
I do see that a critical next step is definitely, having a venue of some sort, like some kind of open house, just to have, the people who have real concerns in our community, giving them an opportunity to ask these kinds of questions, and, just that information sharing, but also just being able to talk about like what might have worked in the past, and how do we get to a better place? How do we find some solutions? It's not only about asking the questions and having citizens, perhaps discuss some of their frustrations and fears and concerns. It's also about those grassroots solutions too. So I hope that you'll definitely consider doing one in the Strait area. I suspect that many members of our gallery would most definitely be interested in something like that, so that we can, really dig into this, because this touches everybody, absolutely everybody in our community.
And your presentation was quite interesting. I'm just wondering, when you're talking about looking outside the boxes, is there anything there to encourage young people to go into Ireland? Like, are we offering the area for bursaries to help maybe with their schooling, because it's quite expensive to go to university? Like, is there anything there being offered, for them?
That's a good point.
To encourage like the younger ones now.
Absolutely. So like at an open house, we definitely could have a lot of those incentive programs, to be able to inform potential, students or whatnot. But thank you so much for your time. We do have a couple of presenters waiting in the wings. And certainly please share your contact information if you haven't done so already. And we will pass that contact information on to council, and hope that in the future, if there is an opportunity to have an open house, we're happy to help kind of advertise a venue like that, to make sure that the information is getting out into the community and that everybody kind of understands. And I think everybody wants to roll up their sleeves and do something to improve our situation.
We'll take that away. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Parks, Recreation, Active Living Advisory Committee. You have to say that acronym 10 times fast, buddy. Welcome. Hi. Come on in and present. This is much better. Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm just going to talk to you first.
All right, so are we just a kind of verbal description, or do you have to?
No, there's a little bit of slideshow.
Okay, perfect. Did somebody divest the clicker to you? Okay, good, you have a clicker. Okay, welcome, by the way.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am Terry Wood, this is Buddy Burner, and we are members of the town's Parks, Recreation, and Active Living Advisory Committee. You are right, it's a nightmare. So we always get the acronym, we get our meeting emails. So I guess we've been gathering for a little better than a year in person and via Zoom calls and what have you. And so I guess the purpose of the committee is to look at the parks, the recreation activity in the town, any active living topics and just kind of assessing the situation, seeing what needs work, what needs improving, that kind of thing. And just kind of helping to oversee what's going on in town with the recreation. And so when we started meeting, we kind of looked at what's happening in the town as far as recreation goes and looking at the parks. And years ago, when we were doing the Port Hawkesbury Community Park, and it was kind of decided that that was going to be like a main focus recreation area for the town, just to help out with maintenance and whatnot, so that we didn't have all these little satellite parks all over the place. And, you know, there's a lot of activity happening in the town right now with the active transportation trail, and, you know, the trails are fabulous, and I can't say enough for the people that work on that committee. You know, we've got a lot happening in this town for recreation, and it's fabulous. So, I mean, if that's not enough to entice doctors with young families to come, I don't know what is, just saying. But I got involved with this committee because of my role with the Port Hawkesbury Community Park Society. I'm one of the co-chairs on that society. So when the shout out came out from the town for this committee to take place, or to be gathering, I said, sure, yeah, I'd like to be involved with that, just because of my role with the community park and kind of stay on top of what's going on. And of course, there's always little pockets of money here and there that we can help contribute. So as I said, this group's been meeting for about a year, and we started throwing around different ideas for things that people in the community have been asking for, or things that they've been interested in. So just to kind of put it out there before we get into the all wheels park, and how we kind of arrived at that decision. Some of the suggestions that were brought forth included an outdoor pool. I know years ago the town had an outdoor pool because we hit it with a bulldozer when we were trying to level the park. I'm not sure why that didn't succeed, but you know, we talked about the fact that an outdoor pool is huge liability for the town. It means having to hire lifeguards, which apparently are in short supply these days. You know, there are a lot of factors, a lot of costs involved for the sake of a couple of months. We talked about extending a walking track around the community park. That was in the plans when we were designing that park. But with things that are kind of happening right now with the AT trail, we don't want to step on any toes there. We're going to see what's going to happen with that and kind of go from there. Maybe expand things later on down the road. We had looked at Off-Leash Dog Park. And again, that becomes a matter of where would you have it, and liability, and controlling it, and by law enforcement. There's, you know, a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. It's not out of the question, but right now we do have places that people use for off-leash purposes. What else do we look at? An outdoor skating rink was another hot topic that people were interested in, but again, a lot of huge cost involved there. We did try to do one in the past, but it was kind of a makeshift, do as you will, and didn't realize the area that we were working in, that it wasn't going to work out so well. And I think we had an exceptionally mild winter the year that we tried to do it, so it didn't work so well. So we had lots of ideas that came our way, and one that kept surfacing and that we came back to was something that the Community Park Society had looked at incorporating at the park eventually, was an all-wheels park. So over there currently, there is a pump track, I guess is what they call it. And we're hearing feedback from like skateboarders especially that it's not fantastic for skateboards. It works great for scooters, some scooters, and it works great for bikes, but because of the height that's required, for the deck on your skateboard doesn't work fantastic for that. So again, we're hearing shout out again for an all-wheels park. So we arrived at that conclusion that this was the direction we were going to take. So without further ado, we'll get into this. So we're going to look at what the definition of an all-wheels park is, what some of the benefits of having an all-wheels park might be. We'll look at a suggested location, getting into fundraising and potential partners. So what is an all-wheels park? An all-wheels park is an inclusive park where people can use scooters, skateboards, BMX, bicycles, I think that's supposed to be inline skates, or roller skates, and even wheelchairs. So it's a gathering place where people can come with these, different types of wheels to gather and hang out and socialize. So what benefits are there at an all-wheels park? Well, it promotes physical activity for people of varying abilities. There are many health and wellness benefits of park spaces. Improves people's mood, your attitude, stress reduction, improved mindfulness and creativity, building of social capacity. It creates a space for people to gather and be social with one another. It's an intergenerational space. You will find people of all ages that are interested in skateboarding, BMX biking, traveling on scooters, and if they're not there actively participating in that, guaranteed they'd be there with children or with grandchildren, watching them participate in these activities and getting the socializing process. It integrates parks and green infrastructure adjacent to the trails. Our trails are very busy, and I know seeing people active in the location we have in mind, it would generate a lot of interest and more socialization. All right, so these are a couple of potential design examples that we're looking at. I'll have Buddy speak a little bit more about these. Buddy spent many years skateboarding, and he can talk about some of the different aspects of the pieces and kind of how you could use them, I guess. Okay.
I think it's a red laser. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see the doctor somewhere.
It goes on the screen though.
Oh, maybe not.
Oh, okay.
So with these designs, like, there's lots of variable, like different levels. So there's, I had a pointer to show you. But it's for all like beginners right into advanced, and of all ages too, can use these parks, from little kids, from like even 2 years old, that's doing that skate parks, racing around scooters or even skateboarding and bikes. And yeah, so these two are just ideas, but the final design will probably be more inclusive to all ages and all types, I think, for the community. Because I know we had parks in this town before that were maybe a little too advanced for some people. Right? Yeah, that's it for me.
I think it's important to note that we're looking at concrete design. I know various designs in the past were, made of wood, wooden structures. That doesn't hold up to use. It doesn't hold up to weather. It doesn't hold up to vandalism. So we're looking at something that would be, concrete and a little more sturdy, permanent, something similar to what Antigonish was going on. Yeah. All right, so as far as location goes, many people may recognize this spot. So in doing a walk around to see where there may be a potential location for a skate park that we could incorporate within the larger community park area, this spot was brought up as being ideal because it's close to the road. Anybody that visits an all-wheels park, I shouldn't say all people, a lot of people that visit an all-wheels park, if you're there skateboarding and you're, showing off your tricks and whatnot, you like to be visible. Well, this location is right by the road, but there's enough space in between that it's not gonna, pose a danger for anybody. It's a nice flat location. It's already fairly level. It is a larger space than it looks. I mean, in that particular picture, it doesn't look very large, but it is quite a large space. It's currently occupied by the community garden boxes. So what we were hoping might be able to happen would be to have those garden boxes relocated to another part of the community park so that they can still be utilized, but still have this space, which is adjacent to the pump track and beside the playground structures in front of the tennis courts. That's the proposed location that we would love for this to happen. Okay, path moving forward. We're getting to the end. I promised you a short presentation, but here we are. So the Recreation Advisory Committee would, moving forward, create a fundraising subcommittee to focus on creating a fundraising plan, gather up the funds that we need in order to, move forward with a particular design. We look at the engagement of possible community partners. To my knowledge, there have already been some that have expressed interest. The Port Hawkesbury Community Park Society is willing to partner with this committee as well to act as a not-for-profit organization as far as filling out grant applications and whatnot goes. And we are able to commit some money to this project as well. So I guess next steps moving forward would be confirmation of a design, get a little bit of public consultation on this to see what aspects of an all-wheels park they might like to see. And I guess get a little bit of feedback on that and come up with a final design, get it priced out, do the fundraising for it, and move forward in a phased build, meaning we're not going to try to tackle this all at once. It's a huge area, and you're looking at a lot of money for a project like that. But the nice thing with these types of projects is that you can do it in a phase build and you can incorporate little bits and pieces at a time. It doesn't have to be all done at once, and it can still be enjoyable with even little bits built in there. Yeah.
So
Any questions?
Yes. So I guess just a quick question. So in terms of the ask of council, obviously the location, the sort of the welcoming the All Wheels Park to the community park as a new addition. So contribution of the property to accommodate the new addition to the community park. And I guess, is there any other formal asks of council at this time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just the land.
All right. All right. So I guess I'll ask if council have any questions. Maybe we'll start.
You want to start with me? You want to start with me?
You're so close to me. I can't help myself. Go ahead.
Well, thanks, everybody. I mean, I sit on the committee, as you know. Deputy Mayor chairs it. And we did have 5 or 6 venues, and for the sake of a better word, that we wanted to try, the pool, and the rink and all these things, and we said no. We came down and we decided that this is the one that we could try to tackle. And this is a great presentation. I didn't know he did that much on it, but it's a really good presentation. I think you certainly have the advisory committee's support because we're on it and we support it. So going forward, I guess we can just, there's 3 other council members here that we got.
Okay. I guess what Councillor McDougall is telling me is just to go on to the non-advisory committee members. So,
okay, yeah.
Councillor McIver.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the presentation. And I think I'd like to see more of the design of it and before we go forward, but I don't think the property will be an issue once we get there. Thank you.
Councilor McCoy.
Mhm. Thank you, Your Worship. Do you know what the cost was for the Antigonish project?
Yes.
Yeah, how much was it?
I believe it cost them, I believe it was under 300,000 for the park, but they spent 200,000 on the design and having like the infrastructure and the design all set up, which is something I think we can actually avoid. So I believe our cost of what we plan on building could potentially be $200,000. Especially if we have apparently, I think possibly we have partners to help in the community with a lot of things, we can even reduce that cost quite a bit. And we can get a lot of fundraising done.
So like some sweat equity.
Yeah,
Just-
sweat equity, and there's a lot of great grants out there for green spaces and recreation.
Yeah.
So I believe, and we're building in phases, so I believe something that is attainable to the town.
So it sounds like it could be a really cool grassroots community project with a lot of
Yeah.
people rolling up their sleeves and pitching in,
Yeah,
being kind of, really progressive with
yeah.
proposals and grant writing.
And it attracts, like, Antigonish, like, I skate there quite a bit, and, like, in the summertime, I meet people from all over the province, and parents, they'll go, like, they'll spend every weekend, go to a different park, right? Like, so it's a very popular thing, and it does bring people to the community. Like, I go to Antigonish all the time.
Is Antigonish multiple, like skateboard,
Yes, it
scooters
is.
and all that?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's it's smaller and tighter, so it's kind of a little slightly more advanced, even though you get more kids in there. I think if we were to build one, it'd be a little, well, with the space, we could definitely make it a little bigger, make it more approachable for all ages and all
Abilities.
abilities, yeah.
Yeah, so,
For Your Worship.
do you have a follow-up question?
Yes. Funding, where did the funding come from for the project in Antigonish?
There, 20-some years ago, I remember being approached by them to join their committee and help them fundraise. That was 20-some years ago. So they've been working on their part for a long time, right? I don't know exactly where they got the funding recently. I don't know if they ended up getting a lot of grants. I don't know specifics of that. But I know in 20 years they did it. But it's a long time.
Hopefully it won't take us that long.
It would be way less, because I don't think they had the grants that we have these days, like green spaces and skateboard parks. There's a lot more out there than it was 20 years ago.
In terms of parking, do they utilize the old Antigonish County Municipal?
They have a parking lot right beside the skateboard park.
Right.
Right.
Is that next to the, part of the old Antigonish County Municipal?
I don't know where that building is.
Okay,
But it is, it's the RCMP shop,
right,
it's a skate park.
Yeah.
And then there's that parking lot.
the brick.
And the brick building.
Yes.
Yeah. So that must be it.
And last question, Your Worship, do you have any examples of phased build parks?
No, I don't, but I'm sure I could dig some up quick enough. Right, so. Because Antigonish was a one build
Yes. Yeah,
deal, right?
so that's what I was curious
Yeah.
about, like phase build.
Yeah.
It sounds practical because
Yeah.
you're not having to do the whole thing at
Yeah.
once, but is it the way to go as well?
We could get $200,000 off the bat, eh? But we're gonna do what we can do, right?
Yes.
But so Kentville, they had a phase build. So 20 years ago again, they had a phase build. Actually, that park is gone now. It was right by the mall in Kentville.
Right.
So like, I don't know, I haven't been there in a long time, so I don't know what they did with that, but they ended up moving it somewhere else. But they have done it.
Great, thank you both.
The Deputy Mayor O'Coin, I guess maybe in your comments or questions, you can advise council as chair what would you need from council to go forward in terms
Sure.
of the commitment?
Thank you, through you, your worship. Thanks for the presentation. One thing that I think is important for everybody in this room and the public to understand when we're talking about fundraising. So you did mention, Terry, that we're looking at a subcommittee for fundraising. I want to kind of switch gears here to Aaron for a minute. So this subcommittee is out in the public, we're fundraising, and we're going to be coming to you with the donations or the fundraising that we receive. Can you just explain how that's handled from the time you get it till the project?
Sure. Through you, Chair. So it is pretty typical for community groups to fundraise and for municipal assets. And so we can ensure that whatever funding comes through our doors into our offices are tracked separately from kind of our general operating funds and our track spending, I guess, of that fund. Those funds would be spent specifically on whatever the activities they were fundraised for. I mean, we may want to think about, and I could probably do some research around this, you know, where we have community members going out and fundraising kind of on behalf of municipal assets, just a policy around that, or, you know, to try to, you know, identify individuals who are fundraising on our behalf. So, you know, not anybody can just go out and say, hey, I'm raising money for Roxbury. So something we probably want to think about. But it's definitely something that where this is will be a municipally owned asset, and the fundraising is being driven by the community and being used on municipal assets, then we absolutely would accept those donations, and we would track and account for those fundraised dollars separately and ensure that all of that funding gets spent specifically on the project where those funds, the intent, I guess, of what those fundraising funds were brought forward for. So.
Thank you. So before I ask council for anything, I do want to thank the advisory committee for all the work they put into this. And like was mentioned, we did look at 5 or 6 different projects. We really wanted to bring a project, the first project forward that was going to be very impactful. It's going to be a big project and something that's going to be here for a long time. And like Buddy had mentioned, we will get people from all over the place, so it's good for our small businesses in town and our local businesses. So moving forward, I guess the ask to council would be to donate the land in front of the tennis courts to this project. And I guess it's key to point out as well that the lights from the tennis court will also light the skate or the All Wheels Park. So there's some savings there by putting it there as well. So that would be my ask.
So we would designate the property as used for the All Wheels Park, but at the end of the day, it'll still be like the community park, a municipally owned asset that's used regionally by all citizens. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to bring forward, it'll be important to utilize the space that's there for future use for a number of things, and to put some thought into design and where that's going to sit. Mm-hmm. My suggestion would be that council pass a motion in our special meeting, special public, providing support in principle for the project and recognizing the work that's gone forward right now. So typically siting takes a fair amount of work, and until we know what that design looks like, we want to maximize the use and future capacity for that facility, because it's very valuable space, and this is a phenomenal project that we know that we want to support, but let's kind of take this
and then we can finalize it once that design is then hashed out and approved. Perfect.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Terry. And thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. Exciting. You're going to teach me how to skateboard, buddy?
Let's go.
Okay. Let's wait till St. Richmond is fully operational. Yes, I will need that. I will need the 247 emergency room open. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we do have one last presentation for this evening that we will, without further ado. And then after that presentation, we're just going to recess for a quick 5-minute break. Unless you want to do, you want to do?
Recess now.
Okay, so we're going to recess now, quick 5-minute break. We've been here for an hour and a half. I think that there's some bio break, breaks, etc. Outside air break.
Fresh air break.
Anyway, so just for 5 minutes, and for our gala, or I guess our virtual participants, we'll just be breaking in for 5 minutes.
Do you want to mute there, Karen? Karen, you probably mute.
Pardon me?
You could probably mute.
Thank you.
Breaking. So click
Okay, thanks. So after a brief recess, we will continue on with our final gallery presentation. So Reeve Street Public Opinion Survey results. I'm just going to hand things over to Terry just for a quick intro.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So as we all know, Nova Scotia Public Works is in the study phase of the pilot project for Reeve Street improvement, traffic improvements. Part of that study is a public opinion poll. And so that's what we've been doing. As you know, we've talked about it at this table a number of times. We've hired narrative research to do a professional polling analysis for public opinion within the town. So we're very fortunate to have Don Mills, who's a well-renowned and known marketing expert, public opinion marketing expert. And Don is going to be joined by Dwayne Cross, who we know, senior engineer with Nova Scotia Public Works, who's worked on this project since almost inception, since we started traffic studies and that type of thing.
They were TIR.
Yes, so yes, and probably something before that. So anyway, and Kevin. So Kevin McAkern, who we all know, former chair of the Destination Reeve Street project, and Kevin's going to kick things off, and then we're going to go directly into Dwayne, and then so the primary presenter is Don, and Don's going to come to the screen and present when that's time. So Kevin's going to start. He has the clicker, and he's going to hand the clicker to Dwayne. And
I have the power, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm just going to give a brief history of where we are and where we came from. And of course, this project really has been transformational in a lot of ways for the town. And, well, does it work here? I'm clicking here.
yeah, just a second. Let's try that.
There we go. And the key piece of this, and you may remember me talking over and over again, you may get tired of me being here and talking about this project, but the key thing when this was brought to our attention many, many years ago was that we wanted to take all the information that came previously to this project and take everything in. And of course, the main piece of this project, as you see right there in red, is the actual 2014 traffic study. We knew beforehand, and of course, Dwayne was part of the traffic study survey, was okay to find out what was wrong with Reeve Street. We've known for years that there were serious safeties with Reeve Street. So part of this project was to incorporate the economic development pieces of this, but also the key piece was the safety study. And of course, in 2015, 7 years ago, next month, this study here was actually given. Yes, we've been around for a long time. For skateboarders, yeah, come on back and let's talk. So this is where we are. The most important thing that we did to present that study in 2015 was, first of all, public consultation. And we have to thank Acoustics for the work they did, but these are the main things that we heard from the public, also from stakeholders, is that everyone knows that Port Hawkesbury is a service hub. But we had an issue with the area. They knew that we had to attract more businesses to the area. We also had to somehow attract residents. We also had to improve the visibility of all the local assets this town has. There's wonderful things here, but the issue was people didn't know about them. The other issue we had was tourists resoundingly stated that Port Hawkesbury was just a bypass. I'll come in, I'll get my groceries, do whatever, I'm gone somewhere else. It wasn't a destination for them. The other thing that we all knew as well is Port Hawkesbury residents, okay, it's a very active community, and now we have all kinds of active activities going on in the area. So what are our key goals? Again, we knew that the town, okay, needed a place to grow. We had a reduction of population. We knew commercial taxes were going down. So we had to do something to change this thing. So we had to also improve the tourism draw. If we have tourists come to the area, it's going to help grow the economy. We need to enhance the aesthetics and the character. Basically, we also had to look at facade pieces. And again, the underlying piece of all this was we knew we had to improve the safety and functionality of the street. And now I'm going to pass off to Dwayne.
Thanks, Kevin. So one thing before I get into the brief presentation I have here is it was interesting to see the earlier presenters and kind of the theme tonight around healthcare, supporting healthcare, healthy living, the pump track and that committee and the work that they were doing, how they all they're all like spokes off the wheel. Yeah, spokes off the hub of the town, and how all these pieces play into making it an attractive town to come to, an active town. And that converts into drawing the resources that you're desperately trying to replenish that's needing. So I found it quite enlightening tonight. So Kevin talked about some of the dates, the traffic study in 2014, the destination restreet report, 2015, really launching things off from there. We initiated a pilot project back in 2019, finished up a little later than we had hoped, but that was a key part and a lot of complexities that we did have to work out as a group in developing it as a pilot to try it out and ensure that this is something that we expected was going to work well. Test drive it and sort out the bugs and the deficiencies, and then with hope move into something of a more permanent feature. Of course, shortened a little COVID, caused more delays. We had microsurface that failed. We had a warranty. We had to claim a warranty with the contractor to have that have some additional work done. So there's been some challenges along the way that we've had to work through. And of course, with the public opinion survey that we're going to hear a little more about tonight from Don. So what did we do? We all know this, but just touch on it for the group and those in the gallery tonight. We went from a 4-lane cross section and reduced it down to 2 through lanes, which included the introduction of dedicated turn lanes, for the most part left turn lanes along the corridor, and of course the right turn lane at Pitt Street. There was implementation of access management changes, which is critical to the setting up the configuration to do the left turn lanes. Originally, as you may recall, we were looking at a 2-way left turn lane configuration, and there were some challenges to get back into that again, but we did proceed with what we felt was the safer of the 2 options. Upgrading of the pedestrian crossings, made some changes there, and of course, a couple of improvements at the intersections. And of course, along the way, some additional bigger hitters that we need to work through, and I'll touch on that here shortly. So where do we go from here? So we're seeing the completion, the analysis portion for complete the analysis of the public opinion results. And I'll speak to those tonight. A little more work to do after our department gets an opportunity to consume all the great information that's been gathered from the community. The online commenting results, there's 40 pages for us to work through, so it's fantastic that there's been that much energy and time put into this project from the community, and we want to go through all of that in earnest and seriously to ensure that any final cleanup gets done on the pilot project. So we have to do a little more traffic volume and collision data collection going back for the duration of the pilot. We anticipate getting that wrapped up by September. We're going to complete the analysis of all the data into the fall. We're going to identify and confirm any outstanding items from the pilot phase. And maybe a longer term component is some carryovers that we couldn't deal with the pilot. So with the pilot, it was, let's put this in place, see how it goes without being too intrusive or without introducing permanent features. So we talked about some curbing at the Union Hall that we felt was the complete configuration for shifting lanes as you approach Pitt Street. So we couldn't do that piece, and for all the great cooperation and hard work from Destination Reeve Street and around the table to get all the businesses on side for these access management changes, all but 2. I mean, it's fantastic. I've never seen
that level of cooperation in my career within the community, within the business community. So that was fantastic. But there's a couple of deficiencies we've still got to work through. And we're going to complete our project report, so that'll be something done by Public Works. Again, that's going to encompass everything that we've done through the design, through the pilot, where we are, how we move forward with addressing pilot deficiencies, and of course, any of those more permanent things that we couldn't take on within the scope that was given to us and within the financial capabilities of the pilot, which of course includes the signalized intersections and a variety of things that we know we need to deal with.
Could we just ask a question as we go, if that's okay? I know Councilor McDougall did have a question at one of our, I guess, former meetings, just how important it would be to include the summer traffic, as we are expecting a nice rebound kind of tourism shoulder this summer. I just wanted to make sure that, I guess, the traffic volume and collision data for the summer is going to be included in that
Exactly.
allotment of data for, okay, perfect. I just wanted to ask that because I know Councilor McDougall had asked about that prior.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Your Worship, if I may, I guess my question was, it's just in terms of the survey, was, wouldn't it be more reasonable and inclusive and to do the survey after the summer when we had the higher traffic volume? Especially things like Celtic Colors. I just heard yesterday where everything down in, at the Cabot Trail is sold out for, so people are coming through here. So the survey is over.
So you always pay down to another one.
No, I don't think we can pay him to do another one.
Well,
No.
I think the survey that was completed is, it's really capturing the key audience, who is the community. Celtic Colors is a fantastic event, and it draws such a large footprint. As much as we like to treat our customers and visitors as best as possible, I think it's the ones that live in the community and that experience the community that's key to the outcomes of the study.
You're right. I can get into that too, but that's, I'll get questions later when we do the survey results. But I hear where you're going. And just a simple thing I can tell you, I work over at the mill there. There's a lot of guys and girls that come from Route 19. And now that then they go down Granville Street. Now they're complaining about Granville Street because we put stop signs up down there and they're going through stop signs. So this is the conundrum we're in. So I'm just telling you how it is.
I do appreciate the comments, and they are important. Yeah. That was my presentation.
Oh, okay.
Perfect time.
Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. Pleased to be here to present the results of the survey that we did. Is this up and ready to go? Just keep clicking, that's the way it works.
But just want to make sure that we're, there you go.
Okay. So the public opinion study, as previously indicated, was done by Narrative Research. And I just want to give a little bit of the method that we chose. We put in a proposal, we offered a number of options. The option that we preferred, frankly, was a random telephone survey so that we could be able to project the results of the entire population with reliability. In this case, reliability is plus or minus 6.2 percentage points, which basically says if you have 50% of the population saying something, it could be as low as 44% or as high as 56% with a 95% probability. That's what it means. It was a fairly long survey. We asked a fairly detailed amount of questions, and it was about 12 minutes in total. The key objectives was really to look at the public awareness of the changes, what the opinion was of the changes, and what impact the changes had on residents. That was our mission, basically. That's what we were out to try to determine. I'm going to start with a big word that you know probably nothing about. It's called regression. I want to start at the end just because it's so important to try to understand why people have opinions. Because if you understand why people have opinions, you can basically respond to those opinions with the right actions. So we did a regression analysis, which is basically determining why people answered a question. What was the drivers that led people to answer the questions the way that they did, especially the big question on satisfaction. And sorry, that's not going backwards. Weird.
Right hand side.
Right side is your phone.
Okay, let's try this again. So in this case, we had I think the strongest regression model I've seen in decades. It's 0.8. It's 80%. We can explain 80% of the answers by knowing that, you know, how people answered 4 other questions. But let me just step in. So, but the most important one, the one that makes the most difference is, has it been made safer because of the changes? Depending on how you answered that, if you think they have, you're satisfied. If you think they're not, you're not satisfied. Basically, that's it. It's the most important driver of how people view the changes. I think it's really important to understand that, because when you look at the results that come, you can see what people are saying about the changes that are still necessary. You know, there are more changes necessary, let's be honest. And especially the online survey was very valuable, not so much for how people answer the questions, because you know that's what I would call a non-statistical study, but their opinions and how they express those opinions were rich with information. And that gives us really good information about what the next series of things need to happen to increase satisfaction with the changes. That's all. And then the second thing is, you know, access. How has it impacted the access to retail and commercial properties along the street? Has it increased the attractiveness of the street, and have it made it a more attractive destination? Those 4 questions are really the key to gaining satisfaction with the changes. So I'm kind of starting at the end, only so that when you go through the data, you can look at the things that are impacting this issue and how people answer those questions. So just, you know, we did basically a random survey, and you know, we found out a bunch of things. For an example, you know, about 25% of the households have somebody working on the street. That was helpful. You know, 58% own their own home within the town limits. You know, the age skews, and this is demographically something that you know yourself, a little older. And in fact, one of the most important pieces of information, this actually deals with, you know, demographics and population. You know, you've had challenges growing the population here for a while. I think the last census you were up, right? Forget the percentage, up just a little bit. Yeah. So, you know, this is.
John, before you go further, please.
Yeah, sure.
So your worship. Is this, these numbers, is that just the telephone? Or
Yes.
Yes. Just
Yeah.
the telephone?
Yeah, and let me just make a point here, because I want you to really understand this. We offered the online as an option, and we said it's not a statistical reliable study. We couldn't use the data to project to the population with any confidence. So it was a good tool to get people to respond to their interests, especially on the verbatim side. The verbatim side was rich. But this is only on the telephone survey. But one of the points that I want to make out, because you haven't had a lot of population growth for some time, you have an aging population, obviously. You know, you have, and not only that, but you have a population that's very static. 65% has spent 20 years or more in town. That's probably at the high end of most communities in this province. And the reason I point that out is that, no disrespect, but you know, with a group of people who spent a long time here, they have a certain way of looking at things. You know, you don't have a lot of new ideas or people coming into the community. So 65%, 20 years or more, you know, you have 11% less than 5 years, you know, and so the population trend here is a challenge, and you know, this is not what I meant to do here tonight, but I implore you that you need to have a population growth strategy.
He wants me to need a housing strategy for that.
Yeah, I'd rather have.
There's nowhere for them to live.
I get that problem, but you know, you need to have a growing population, because guess what? Your workforce is going to disappear, and there's nobody behind to fill those spots. And this is probably the biggest challenge you have as a community, Mayor, in my opinion. You know, I'm a big believer in urban sort of centers, and you know, you're one. So, you know, the sizable majority of residents are satisfied with their quality of life, which is good news. You know, 70% is a pretty good number. There's a bunch in the middle. You know, I always look at the bunch in the middle, because the bunch in the middle are the easiest to influence. The ones over here, you know, very hard to get them to change. The ones in the middle, you know, it'd be very interesting to know what it would take to move them to higher satisfaction quality of life. Why is that important? Well, you know, you're trying to recruit people to the community. People feel good about the community. It's easier to recruit them. You talked about nurse turnover. Why is that happening? Is there something with the community that's causing people to move somewhere else? Like, I don't know, but you know, this is part of that challenge. You know, and obviously, Reeve Street is a popular destination for almost everybody. You know, 83% of the people we talked to had been on the street in the previous 24 hours of being surveyed. So they know the street. Not only that, but they're on the street typically at least 13 times a week. So we got a high volume, a high incident rate of residents on the street. So they know what's going on in the street. There's, you know, the familiarity with the street is completely in it. So let me go into some detailed analysis, if you don't mind. So obviously, we've got a lot of long-term residents. We know that public opinion is divided in terms of satisfaction with the changes made to Reeve Street. It's pretty clear. It's kind of split. And by the way, our design intentionally asked that question without any other noise around. We asked it as the first question in the survey. Why did we do that? We wanted the unvarnished sort of gut level reaction to it. You'll see a little later on in some of the data that when we ask them about specific changes, the level of satisfaction is quite a bit higher. You know, so, you know, the gut reaction is split, but when we get into the detail, it's more favorable. I think that's important. You know, the residents are mainly concerned about the drivability, obviously, and safety as a result of the change. And but you know, they're very content about the changes made in terms of the walkability and attractiveness of the street. And in fact, if you look at, you know, what they see would make it better, they say more emphasis on the aesthetics. You know, more trees, more plants. You know, that would make it better. So I guess you'd have to say you're on the right track in terms of that side of the issue. Clearly, there may be some resistance to change happening here after a long time where it's 4 lanes and all of a sudden it's 2 lanes with, you know, turning lanes. Again, an older population gets set in their habits. There is a bit of an adjustment period, and to your point, Councillor McDougall, and you know, we were asked to do the survey, you know, in May. It had been in place for not quite a year, I guess. When's the right time to do it? You know, you could make the argument it would be better to do it in September. I don't disagree with that.
My question for that was after COVID, the restrictions on COVID is over.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, COVID, a lot of people are staying home.
No, I understand that, and you might be right. I can't answer that question, but you know, it wouldn't matter if we did it in September. Somebody else would say, you know what, you know, you should do it in early May next year. You know, there's never a perfect time to do it. So people were well informed about there was only about 25% that didn't really seem to understand what was going on. I don't know why that would be, but given the fact that they were on the street almost every day, they must have seen it. So that's interesting. So as I said, it's mixed, 41% mostly completely satisfied, 46 mostly completely dissatisfied. I want to point out that, you know, there's a quarter who are, you know, completely dissatisfied. So it's not that it's, you know, it's being well received universally. And this is, you know, I would say to any of my clients is that when you have 1 out of 4 with high levels of dissatisfaction, it means you have to do something. It means you have to do something. You cannot ignore it. It's too big a number to ignore. And I said this to the committee as well. So, you know, one thing that's clear though, it's made people generally, the level of pride has gone up in the community with these changes. The net result is that more people are more proud of the community than they were before. That's a positive. That's positive. And by the way, the more those changes are enhanced, aesthetically especially, I think, that sense of pride will go up. And you'll see some evidence that people are actually changing their behavior as well as a result of the changes, which is really important. You know, people are kind of split on whether it's made a more attractive destination. And I just have to tell you that you're a regional hub. Whether you know, think you are or not, you're a regional hub, and you should be working on Port Hawkesbury as a destination place for goods and services. That's how you're going to build your economy, you know. And if you look at, I forget the number, but if you look at 50 kilometers around, there's a lot of people in that geography, and that's, you know, I advise you to think about that as your marketplace, not your residents in your town at all. They're your primary customer, but you have a secondary group of customers that are within a half-hour drive of Reed Street. So, you know, what are the impacts of the changes made to Reed Street? So 50% agree that it's provide more opportunities to walk or bike. Now, you might say, well, why is it only 50%? Well, the fact that 50% of an aging population would say walking and biking has been opportunities to improve is a pretty big number. You know, 38% only have said it's safer for driving. That would indicate to me that there are some things, and we have really good direction on this, by the way. Some things need to be fixed a bit. So we have some direction on that, which is great. That's why you do the survey. You know, that it's made it easier to access retail and commercial properties. It's increased the attractiveness of the street, 54% agree with that. It's improved the facades of the building, 53% agree with that, and has provided better signage for directions. And on this one especially, I'm going to say, if you take the time to read the online comments, you know that there needs to be more on signage. It's sorry, Dwayne, but it's not adequate right now. You know, it's just not. And there has to be some things done. And by the way, I came into town tonight for the first time since the changes were done. And I kind of agree with some of the comments when it comes to, you know, getting close to Tim Hortons. Like it's, you know, you come up a hill and all of a sudden you're there. And you have these overhead kind of direction signs. I didn't even see them. I missed them. You know, so I agree with what they're saying about that particular corner. And if you looked at, you know, the personal experience, this is the thing that I want to really emphasize a little bit. 42% have used the trails along Reed Street more frequently. 42%, that's a huge number. That's a huge number. You know, 20% have visited more often to shop or dine. If I'm a retailer on that street and there's 20% more activity in my store, I'd be pretty happy, especially now. You know, 20% have, you know, access services more often. 16% more use the facilities of the Civic Center more often. You can see, even though these numbers seem small, 12% brought out of town visitors to see the changes. You know, these are all positive. Even I've ridden a bike along Reed Street more frequently, 6%. Now, by the way, you probably only have, I don't know, 15% of the population who ride a bike. You know, put it in perspective. So these are big numbers. You know, so if you only look at these numbers, these don't, that's only a minority. Yeah, but a minority that improves on every aspect that we tested. So that is pretty good news. And then, despite the overall sort of mixed opinion of changes, this is what I'm getting at. We started with the big question and we started to drill down. Residents generally recognize the benefits associated with the changes. So, turning onto Reed Street is more challenging. This is the only one we reversed. 50%, 57% agree with this. This is a negative. More challenging to make the turn on. I get it. I get it. Of course, there's going to be more challenging because, you've got to cross the traffic now that's, only on 2 lanes. But improvements made to the sidewalks, crosswalks have made it a safer for pedestrians. 68% agree with that. Streetscape improvements installed create a more urban environment on streets. 74% agree with that. Reduction in the number of lanes and creation of dedicated lanes make it easier to make left turns. 54% agree with that. That's majority, obviously. The speed of traffic is now safer, 51%.
Can I just stop you there for 1 second?
Yeah.
The left-hand turns, is that on or off of Reeve Street?
It's left turn, turning onto Reeve Street, making a left-hand turn.
Turning off. Turning off of Reeve Street.
Turning off of Reeve Street.
It's not turning on.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
What is it?
It's turning off of Reeve Street.
Turning off Reeve Street into the businesses. Right. Thank you. The upgrades to the Pitt Street intersection have improved the flow of traffic from the straight, leaving the straight area. 60% agree with that. 64% agree that accessibility improvements have made the street safer for everybody. You get my drift. Like, that if you start to look at the specific aspects of the impacts, it's, majority positive on most of them, with the exception of the first one.
Which is turning left onto Reeve Street.
Onto Reeve Street, right. Yeah.
That's the biggest concern.
Yes. And it comes out in the comments too, by the way. It's a common complaint. And so, Wayne's the expert on highways. He might want to come back to this in the questions, but it seems to me that, if you look at the comments, the most common comments relate to the turning signage, the lane indicators, which have not stood up to weather, and of course that makes a difference. The problem of people getting up to Pitt Street and being in the wrong lane and then going back and going ahead, that seems to be the most dangerous one, obviously. And so it seems to me that that can be fixed. That can be fixed with signage, better signage, and maybe the location of the signage, because you can't wait till the top of the hill to see that, I don't think. And I'm not a traffic designer, but it's just common sense. Like, I went up that hill, I missed the ones overhead. So, all right. So suggested improvements. A lot of people want to go back to where it was, for sure. But when the people with ideas talk about what should be done, better signage, repaint the lines and the markings, better traffic lights and turning lights. And by the way, one of the comments were, it's hard to make a left-hand turn with the turning lanes when it's busy at lights. So maybe you need a turning signal to allow some of that traffic to get through. Just a right. Again, I'm not a traffic guy. I just drive a lot of car. More crosswalks and safety, etc. But these are the kind of the big ones right here. And then what would improve long term, make it more attractive? Improve the landscaping and greening, trees and flowers. Repair the buildings. In fact, some of the online questions, comments said there's some vacant buildings, get rid of them. It's not helping the view. Better signage, markings, traffic lights. Of course, more businesses, improve the add a bypass. Yeah, that's an easy solution. And more questions. So pretty practical. And if you again look at the online comments, they support all this in a little bit more detail. Like when people take write a paragraph, and it's not negative, it's just, this is what I think should be done. It means that they're willing to give more opportunity to get it right, which I think is a good sign. So these are the recommendations that we offered the pilot project steering committee and you as funding partners, you know, you need to respond to the findings with a timetable. Like, you know, that's the expectation. You set the expectation up when you did the survey, both the telephone survey and the online survey, that people would find out what the results were and what the next steps were. Like I say that to every client I've ever had in my life, that's a responsibility that you have, especially as a local government. It's even higher, I think. You really need to make the results available as soon as possible. Now, you know, what we've done is we put together a little one-page infographic. Simple, basically has all the key information on it. Honestly, I know you have to worry about wording and stuff, like get it out. Like there's, like if you look at it and say, there's nothing, this is transparent, get it out. So it's ready to go. You could get it out tomorrow. Terry, you probably didn't want me to say that, did you?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I think you need to maybe do more research by talking to people, maybe in businesses, and see what they're hearing from their customers. Like, I don't know how you solve exactly the turning left onto Reeve Street, because there's a lot of access points. Obviously, there are periods when it's really busy and it's hard to get an opening to get across. And you don't want lights every, 10 feet. So I don't know what the solution is to that, but there may be some solution to that. And then, it seems clear to us that almost all the other things, other than the traffic safety things, have been well received. Like it's just like, do more of that, because they like that. And again, I'm going to go back to the regression model. The number one thing, if people feel that they feel safe driving along that street, then they're going to be satisfied with the changes. And the biggest point of safety seems to be around Tim Hortons. That seems to be, that's the number one fix based on my take of the feedback and the comments that needs to be made. There are others, the turning signals on the lights. Obviously, it should be maybe considered. Some other way of getting across the traffic should be considered. But that one in particular, it's such a predominant comment, and people are saying that they're coming closest to having an accident there. That's where they're seeing the close calls, and that can be fixed. I think that can be fixed.
It's a tough left turn on McSween and Reeve Street too. That left turn, that left turn is super challenging.
But again, I would invite the council members to really take a look at the online comments, especially. I think it's very insightful, and you don't have to read all 28 pages of it. Read 4 or 5 pages, and you'll get it.
Well, I guess, Don, that's one of my concerns is I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. What's the, I'll tell you why I'm so perplexed here is I was told, and my family and my co-workers and everyone did it online. They didn't do it on phone. So I got a phone call one day. I didn't get it. My wife she was on call at the mill. She got it on her cell phone, but she didn't know how they ever made it work, which is a company phone. And she passed it to me, and I was going to do the survey, but she got a call from work, and I had to go. So I said, "Can you call this number?" "No, we can't call that number because somebody else is calling for us." I said, "Okay." So that was the end of mine. "You can do it online," they said. So I said, "Okay." I did it online. My son did it online. Marie did it online. A lot of my coworkers did it online, but it's not reflecting it on the numbers.
No, and again, you can see the numbers, but they're meaningless.
Well, how many people did it online?
About 300 people, but we don't know if your family did it 5 times each or once each. See, this is the thing, the methodology, you can't tell how many how many times somebody did it. It's not a reliable, not only that, we don't know proportionally if it's representative of the population. I mean, there's no way of knowing if it's represented by age, by whatever.
Well, you're the expert and I have to agree with you because I don't know, but
No, no, that's.
I'm just saying what happened to me. I'm sure it happened to other people.
Well, all I can tell you is that, you have a pretty small population here. We were able to complete 252 telephone, randomly selected telephone surveys. It's not easy to do.
53.
And I'm sorry you didn't get interviewed, but essentially, that's the part that we have to focus on, because that's the part that we can extrapolate to the whole population with some sense of reliability.
So Don, am I understanding correctly that the telephone survey gave us our results, but when you look at the pages from the online,
yeah,
that's where you're getting your somewhat information as to why people answered the questions the way they did?
Well, I gave you the open-ended responses because in the open-ended responses from the telephone survey, we categorized them and grouped them so that you could see the percentages. So that gives you the kind of the frequency of comments. And then the online gives you the richness of the response because they're detailed.
Right.
And that's why I think that part of that survey is valuable, because you get the verbatims of the detail, which we can't do when we code open ends. We're trying to give you kind of the rank order of which ones are coming at the top. So you get the best of both worlds. That's why we provided all the online responses to the committee to have a look at, because Public Works in particular needs to look at this because it gives guidance about where the next sort of actions have to happen. It's relatively clear.
So I've heard you say a couple times now you've given it to the committee. Which committee have you given it to?
Wow, committee.
What?
We got the results last week.
Because Councilor Corey and I sit on a committee for this and we have received nothing.
So if I can address that. So when I addressed council last time, Councilor Google asked about the survey and I had received the initial results that day. So what I indicated at that time is we go back to the larger committee, the committee that Nova Scotia Public Works had established, and we present the results to them, and then we present the results to here. The issue is we only had enough time to get to here, so we did that. It was more important to present to the larger council than was to present to the committee. We'll have to go back to the committee and do that, but we felt it was more important to come to this group first, or at the first opportunity. This is the last time we're meeting before the summer, so that's the way it was chosen. It was chosen to come here first before it went to that large committee. So then we'll have EHS back, we'll have RCMP, we'll have Fire Hall, we'll have other residents and their two councilors who just gotten the results with a presentation from the owner of the company. That's what I've done.
Again, when I heard that this was your last meeting until September, the only thing I thought in my mind was 3 months before the citizens get any feedback on their input. Is that what you want to do? Is that going to help the council's credibility, the town's credibility? And, well, Public Works too. Well, we're probably not, we don't care as much about Public Works. But, that's why we decided that we would bring it here and sort of skip that interim step, because we thought it's important that you get the information and be able to consider it in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I'll echo that too. What Don said, right out of the gates, you got to get out with this as quick as you can. If you sit on it a long time, people lose confidence in the process and their investment of time into it.
Yeah.
They're made a call to say, we're breaking for the summer. It's done right away.
Yeah.
Made things move to get here tonight.
We can certainly direct staff to, in terms of how we want that to roll out at our public meeting afterwards.
Yeah, and through your worship, I think it should go out sooner. People have been asking for it. I guess my question, what are you asking of council from this survey?
We're not asking anything. We're just giving.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to
Well, I didn't know.
infrastructure. Yeah.
Oh,
Like it's the province that wants something from council, is it?
Well, from the province's perspective is going to the next step with the outcomes of narrative's work. And some of these do carry over from conversations we've had in the past. They certainly been reiterated within the population. There are some go forwards that I spoke to as far as processing the outcomes of this. You know, those heavy hitters, the approach to Pitt Street. We've been hearing about that. And members of council, mayor, Evan, Terry, we're hearing that, and it's echoed resoundingly from the community. Those are things that we need to act on. So this is the conversation I take back to my director and our executive and Sean O'Connor, our local area manager, that we still got a little bit of cleanup here that we have to follow through with. And I anticipate there's going to be some additional conversation as far as where we go forward from there. So, you know, I talked about, you know, the longer term permanent things. So we clean up some, you know, the way I would envision it, we clean up some of these things, the signage with you know, mindless navigation, not as a negative thing, but mindless navigation through the Pitt Street intersection so that you're not relying on a paint marking that's going to wear out or a sign that, and we've had conversation internally about this and Don's experience. You know, it's small and it's out there, and you know, from a traffic authority perspective, that's all that's needed. From a public perception and from a public experience, it's a different result. Different result being experienced by those drivers. So and it's great. It's really good to hear it coming from such a professional on this, that we can go back to our traffic authority and say, yeah, the book says this, but the population says this, and we've got to make a change. So that's where I see things happening. Longer term, assuming that this type of prospection and the changes we made, that there will be more permanent nature, I would like us to be having conversations with our executive as far as, you know, the longer term go forward, you know, to make this a permanent scenario, and also moving into some of the other components that were considered within the Destination Reed Street project. You know, the multi-purpose trail along Reed Street itself, which it hadn't been parked at that time because we were test driving this. If this is permanent, there's some wiggle room within the road right of way that needs to be leveraged to make that work most effective. So that's where I see, you know, wrap up your pilot project, clean up these deficiencies, figure out a go forward for that longer term permanent solution.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. So, like, I know I had many people talk to me about like left-hand turns, which it's myself, I just don't bother anymore. I'm on Reeve Street, it could be 10 times a day, and if I go to Canadian Tire or anything like that, which could be 3 times a day, I just go right. I don't bother trying to go left anymore because it won't work. Your lights are changing at different times. It's only 2 lanes, so you won't get out. The Pitt Street intersection, it is an issue. I know that your minister got an email from a citizen in a couple of days. They were here painting the lines. It was a pretty strong email. That's something that can't happen. That has to be looked after constantly. The curb thing at Pitt Street, that's a permanent thing. That'll help. I agree. The McSween Street intersection, I know I find myself come into that. I'm in the turning lane every time I come up McSween Street. I'm just in the turning lane. I know when you're coming out of McSween Street to go right at the TD Bank or the old TD Bank, that's got to be fixed. I mean, a 66 passenger bus cannot make that turn because my half ton can barely make it, and I'm in the turn lane. So these are things that, you know, we have to look at and have in front of us, for personally myself, if you want my endorsement.
Yeah.
That this has to be all in place before I'd even think about it, because I had a lot of complaints from people about it. The traffic, yes, it did slow down some, but most people are traveling the same speed, 60 kilometers an hour. We're programmed to go 10 kilometers over the speed limit. The staff sergeant was here that night and said that. You go to Halifax, if it says 100, you're driving 110. So the speeds are good. I don't know if our accidents are down or not, which I don't think they are that much through our department, because we track them too. As you say, the look of the street, the facade, Matt, I think people are very pleased with it. More bicycle and stuff because of the active transportation lane that was put in between here and the college. Excellent. So I think there's a little more work to do on Reeve Street before it's permanent. And we have to see that plan, and we have to sell that to our residents. And then we can move forward. But it's not our street. It belongs to the province.
And the survey, in fairness, is really like the provinces as well.
It's the provinces. But I think at the end of the day, the province is going to make the decision whether or not it's going to stay or go. And
sure,
like I say, with my endorsement, it would have to be a lot of tweaks done to it before it's made permanent.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to, you make a valid point about the ownership and the final call as to what happens within the cross section. I don't like thinking and talking that way because it's been such a great partnership and relationship over the years that, and you may catch me at times saying it's we or even maybe town. It's the province's roadway, but and we're experiencing this elsewhere in the province. You go to Paramedics, you're following along on a rural road, and when you get there, you're driving 25 through there because of everything that's going on and what you're interacting with. And that's the same experience here. Absolutely, there's some of those tweaking things you have to do. All great points. I see three brackets of items that need to be touched on. One of them is some things still within the framework of the pilot project. The navigation as you approach Pitt Street. I do think that it was unfortunate with the Union property that we could not close that right driveway. If we could have closed that, we could have done that curbing alignment. And the way to slow people down, the way to tell people where to go, you make it so if you go the wrong way, you're going to probably break the car. You're not going to do something that's not wise to do. So introducing that curvature with curbing forces that lane shift, which is basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you to take that, go from that right lane into the left lane that used to be those two lanes heading east. You have to make that seamless, that someone doesn't have to think about it. Not too bad when the paint's there. You see the paint. Paint tells you what you should be doing. Not everybody pays attention to paint. Paint's gone, and that's what the experience is here. So something more invasive is part of that. The comments around the screen, absolutely. We've been hearing those, they're not going to go away. Those same issues are going to be there. That long-term resolution was the realignment up. And straight directly down, over here, yes, yeah. So coming up and connecting directly into the signals. So that gives you your control, wayfinding through left, right. That connection between out onto Reeves on Trump 4 is eliminated. So we've known that all along, and we didn't want to take that on during this pilot phase, but that's the long-term solution for that. So there's a little mix of things that are still the low-hanging fruit that we should have probably addressed before now. We have to get those cleaned up. And then there's the more larger scale carryovers. The signal upgrades, digging more into the impacts of doing a protective phase. And as Alex has talked about here before, when you introduce an additional phase in traffic lights, which is a left turn only, you're protected, you do take away some of that green time for the through movement.
Yeah.
So it comes at a compromise. There's some steps for us to go through. We can quantify those compromises and then make the decision of how to proceed. The comment on making a left turn out onto Reed Street, absolutely. It's when you've got 2 lanes of traffic, the gaps between vehicles on average is greater. So then you get more opportunities to make that left turn. However, on the negative side of it, you have more conflicts because you've got 3 or 4 lanes of traffic you're dealing with rather than 2. So there's an inherent safety benefit. If I don't see that coming out of our collision analysis, I'll come back and I'll keep the corner off this table. Because it would just blind the face of what I learned at university, 25 years of my career. That movement is safer. Does it take longer? It does, because now you're taking 2 lanes of traffic, packing them all in one, you have fewer gap opportunities. You have to wait longer for them. And it's probably sometimes it's the signals cycling at the Reynolds that creates those gaps. That's a bit of our struggle when we get into ground discussion.
Projected submissive lighting can go a long way to kind of funnel out those left turning vehicles.
Yeah, on that, working through that piece, we know there's some mobility and accessibility challenges at our signalized intersections. So it's, it's a good date. It's been there a long time, that signal installation. With poles right where we've got drops down across the roadway. Our more modernized signal designs have poles that are set back away from all of that pedestrian movement area, the actuation and that. So those are the costings, and we've talked about those in the past, that there's some real dollars to go into there. But that's the components that kind of merge into that long-term ultimate fix that would need the support commitment and to have that financial component coming in from the province. As far as the left turn coming out, it's going to take longer, but it may take a little longer to make the left out, but you're going to be safer doing it. So there may be also opportunities where if you got to re-navigate, or let's say you're at Solis, instead of coming back up the driveway you came in and waiting to make the left turn, go down Reynolds and go through the light. Delay is relative. I've had conversations, I've had experiences in my travels with my volunteering with the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I've been to most major cities across the country. I've had experiences on the roadways and things like that. Our district director picked me up at Pearson Airport a few years ago, 5:30. Well, he volunteered to stay with me to Kitchener. 45 minutes out, it's 3 lanes of traffic solid both directions, right? And this is normal for them. It's all relative. Adding on, if your trip from home to work is 5 minutes and now it's 7 or 8 minutes, that's a big change. But in the big scheme of things, if you have a safer experience, it's probably worth those 3 minutes. For me, to go from my home to downtown Halifax, 40 minutes. So that's what my benchmark is. And everybody's benchmark is different, and that's okay. We respect that, because everybody's location is different, their experiences are different, their habits are different. And changing those it takes a lot of conversation around that to accept.
And part of the solution to left turn lanes at a Canadian Tire was we had proposed a rear exit onto Church Street, not Main Street, Church Street. And that sort of got lost in COVID. So that again would be a solution as well. There was also a discussion of that laneway behind Marty's building, and McDonald's agreed to that laneway out along there as well. There's certain pieces that can be addressed, that just didn't get addressed.
Well, just even what you just mentioned there about going to Reynolds Street and going across the parking lot. That's a parking lot. I mean, they could close that off anytime.
Usually, I highly doubt they will. because they're gonna lose patrons.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, it's
But they could, yes,
it's
absolutely.
public, it's not, it's private.
Correct.
You go into a street, I mean, you're talking about their streets. There's not even a street.
In my 25 years of doing this job, I've never had a business owner come to me saying they want me to.
I'm not saying they would, but I'm just saying, you mentioned earlier, go over to Reynolds.
Yeah,
Yes, so
I think what Kevin is saying is an exit onto Church Street, right, from the back.
Canadian Tire would be next on Church Street.
Correct.
But there was a discussion, okay, in the Papa's Pub Mall and Marty's Mall, okay?
Oh, yes.
There's that rear lane,
Yeah.
both Marty and McDonald's, when they agreed to that new entrance, okay, the shared entrance that's on Marty's property, they agreed that they would actually allow for that laneway in back to become a permanent laneway onto Reynolds Street, which would then allow people in those two parking lots to go around and exit safer.
Yep, I agree with you.
Well, that was part of the discussion we had when we did the negotiations.
There's two pending things that need to be discussed. And number one is reporting back to the community. The way I see it, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, I would see this as being the purview of Public Works, and, you know, as the larger funder of this particular piece of work, and how that needs to be rolled out publicly. And of course, like, we're happy to partner in terms of rolling that information out. However, you know, if all of the members of the committee haven't kind of laid eyes on that, I would highly recommend that, you know, like the fire department and some other key folks, CHS, et cetera, have an opportunity to see it before it just kind of gets pumped out into the community. Just, you know, just because they have contributed such a lot of their expertise, capacity, and time on the committee. So I would like to see them at least have an opportunity to see that information before it just kind of goes out into the public forum. So those are just two things that I would, I guess, lob over to you, Dwayne. And I know it's getting late, and we could probably be here still talking about Ruby Street till 11 o'clock tonight. So I just want to give council just one last kind of shot to ask any questions if you have any. But we really have to move on, and we're going to be jumping.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to ask if Mr. Mills, if you were finished with your presentation.
Yes.
Oh, that was the end of it?
Yes.
Okay, okay, very good.
I did already double check with him.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't shoot him like, go sit down, Don.
I didn't know, so that's what I was asking.
I think we need to have further discussion with everybody involved with Don's work as far as how to convey the message of all of this to the community. It's tremendous amount of work. There's, every time I hear Don talk about it, there's nuggets of valuable data that come out of it. Talk about outside of Reed Street itself, some things that as a mayor and council, you can leverage out of this.
Absolutely.
To kind of move things, all the messages that we were hearing all night. But as far as how anybody in the community or anywhere want to process the problems that your work and your experience. What would you recommend?
So, you know, if you don't mind me suggesting, like, you know, a fairly brief communication that says, we've got the results. It's part of a bigger process, as Dwayne's mentioned, the full report of the impact won't be available till this fall. But we've learned some things. We'll be back to the community in some period of time with our next sort of actions to respond to the community, because I think we know that we can. And by the way, here are the overall results, so that you can have a look at them and you know exactly what people are saying. Like it's no more complicated than that, worship. And I think that like, you know, it would be good. Like, I understand your point. We should present to the full committee. That could happen pretty quickly. But I would think that, and we don't have a lot of time now, but if you could get that communication out before the end of the month, not a lot of time. I don't know if we can do it, but that would be only a little bit more than a month for when the data was collected, it would be very current. But if you didn't get it out until September, October, you've lost your opportunity.
Even if it's at some point in the early summer, like it's still fairly current, but waiting to the fall, people are just.
No, you're gonna miss your opportunity.
Yeah.
And the issue with being the end of month, you're in summer vacation mode. So if we push it in July again, that's the issue, right? It's got to get out before the end of the month.
Terry, it'd probably be worthwhile to share the infographic that we
Yeah.
put together.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward, like it's kind of what you've seen tonight, in a very, easy to understand overview, which is a good way to communicate to citizens.
And I think that's mainly what citizens are really gonna wanna digest anyway. An
Yeah,
infographic is going to, like just the basic rule of thumb of social media. If you post a 20-page rant, nobody's gonna read it, but if you put a picture with a couple of simple facts, then 90% are gonna read it, so.
Yeah, so your worship, we committed to go back to the committee, so we can set that up in the very near future. And Don can join us online for that, for a short presentation to the committee.
That would make
But the infographic that would be my recommendation as well. Let's post that now. So it gives those percentages, it gives some valuable information. If Nova Scotia Public Works would allow us to do that.
Yes, absolutely. I would encourage that. It certainly, it's a department responsibility within the right of way and what's going on there. But as far as, the work on the work that Don's team has done, conveying that out to the community, if Mayor Council himself.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit of communication with it, as I mentioned, and provided an example of that to the committee to take a look at, just to help a little bit.
And even I would recommend that communication first to the committee to let them know that we're gonna take a deeper dive. That we share the infographic with them before it goes out in the public. This is going out into the public. But we are going to give you an opportunity to go deeper into this infographic information so that they are well aware of it before the next stage in the fall.
So we'll provide the infographic, we'll provide the little lead in, just put things in perspective and the infographic, send it out to council. If there's any issues, you come back to us. If not, then we post it. So that's a one-day thing, and it's on the website.
Should the province not release this first? If we release it first, the perception is this is our project. If the province releases it first and then 10 minutes later we release it, that's fine. But I really think the province should release this first. So it's well known that this is a provincial project. It's not the town of Port Hawkesbury's project.
I'll be honest with this.
We're a partner.
You're waiting over a month. And that's the concern. I mean, it's just in the grand scheme of things, though.
So, Councilman McDougall, you had
I have one more thing, I don't know what may sound.
and then we really have to
We
move
really
on.
do.
We really
I
do.
came your presentation one time at the UNS, Nova Scotia, NSFM. They changed it so many times. It was NSFM and FSMN and UNSFM.
Anyway.
FNSN.
FNSN it was.
That didn't last long.
And that was amazing. I've been to about 20 of them. That was one of the most amazing stories I heard.
Well, you know what, it was directed at communities like Fort Hawkesbury.
But it was rural and more rural. It was great. But anyway, what got me here in this whole thing is you're talking about this graph thing we're going to send out. I'm not think we're getting the real information. Because like I said, I was told to do it online. It's a survey. I photocopied it all from online. And I made it throw it out the window. The first thing it says, the survey, this is intended for Port Hawkesbury residents. And it's commissioned by the town of Port Hawkesbury and Nova Scotia Department of Public Works. The survey is registered Canadian Research Council. 10 minutes and you do it. This survey I thought was going to count. It doesn't count. It's only the phone, the 253 phone calls.
qualitative data is included in
Well,
the.
I get that, but it's still, when I was told to do this online by the poor girl, and I don't blame her because she was just doing her job. Anyway, I don't.
From my perspective of the process, and I do hear what you're saying, I think from, stats was my worst course, but what I'm understanding from Don is the 252 or 253 is giving you a high quality representation of the overall population, which does include yourself. What you did contribute is absolutely valuable. It's in the verbatim, and it carries just as much weight, individually probably more, because your specific comments are being read, processed, and built into that final go forward. We're all in a survey, we're all a number. Right? I can't.
You have one more question.
Very
And
short.
one more final
Very short.
question.
So this survey will go out, and I know we're going to get questions and stuff from the public about it. And are we going to have I guess a rendering drawing from your department before, or September or before, of exactly the changes that you perceive going to be made?
Like resolving the conflict zone.
Right, so that.
Yeah, so that would be, I think that's around the October timeframe that I referenced.
Yes.
It's just, going through all of the verbatim comments through the summer, and wrapping things up, communications within the committee, getting some word out. There's a dialogue on my end to my executives that I have to follow up with as well. Because there's money that has to be spent from our coffers.
Right.
The local area manager certainly hopes it's not his, and that's our goal, that this is follow through from a capital project we had. So that's the labor.
So when can we expect, I guess, our next kind of sit down, rolling up our sleeves, digging in, kind of trying to understand what this potential final product can look like? I guess is that like fall? Sometime fall-ish?
Yes, yep, fall.
Okay.
But can I interject, and this is none of my business to say this, but I just want to say that there are some things you can do immediately. I wouldn't, why?
Absolutely.
I think, and I heard you say this, by the way, that, you can say there are things from the feedback that will lead to changes in the next 60 days.
You're absolutely right, Don. And to Mark's point, I think it's important that we validate that there are some conflicts with the current design that need to be resolved, so that people feel like their contribution has been earned.
Exactly.
Yes.
And validate that. And we are taking all of the feedback you've given us, and we're turning these conflicts into potential solutions.
I'm just confused.
Okay.
One thing that was said up there was with the bikes. We said we didn't want any bike trails. That's why we voted against it.
Bikes can.
I did right over here. I traveled with Sobeys. What?
Bikes can travel on.
I seen Popcan Dan, the only bike I seen up there on that street.
You're not on the road every single day.
I'm there 10 times a day. I live right there. I go to work.
Anyway, we do have to end this because it's almost.
Sorry, Your Worship. Councilor McDougall took liberty to ask her make a comment. I'm going to make one, or I'm going to ask a question. I asked if you were finished, Mr. Mills, in terms of your presentation, because I was going to get you to go back to one of the slides that you had there, and I wrote down two figures of 42% mostly satisfied and 39% mostly dissatisfied. Is that fair?
I'm not sure which question that was.
It was in general, in terms of your satisfaction with the restream.
Yeah, it was almost even, a little bit more on the negative side.
Oh, more on the negative side?
Yeah, slightly more on the
negative. 641. Unsatisfied.
Okay, yeah.
All right, good.
Remember what I said?
Yeah.
A quarter of the population, high level of dissatisfaction.
Yes. Yep.
And that's why I'm urging you to respond.
Yes.
With an action plan.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, are you done?
Well, I'm done, but I can go on.
Yes, you're dismissed. Thank you so much for the time this evening. And I'm sure more to come. We will definitely have questions in the near future, I'm guessing.
Your worship, does the gallery have an opportunity to ask questions?
It's almost 10 o'clock. Councilor Corey, I think we really need to move on. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. All right, so
Only to us. Yeah, we should only be asking questions to us, not to the presenters.
So council reports on assigned committees. I have circulated mine. The only thing that I didn't have time to input is that we did have a kind request from Friends United to allow us to showcase some Indigenous art here at the Civic Center, and there'd be no cost to us. That artwork would be on lend and if council's interested, we can add that as a simple motion in our special public meeting at the conclusion of committee of the whole. Other than that, does anybody have any updates?
I got a couple here, Your Worship.
Sure, we'll start with you, Councilor Klein, or Big Dougal.
I'm just gonna say that meetings we had a Police Advisory Committee meeting on July 14th, and there was one, I sent them an email to everybody asking if they had any questions to ask, and I got one question that was asked, and it was the intersection down in, that we talked about down in Grants Pond, the two intersections there, the one with Macquarie and Crandall, and the other one at Pine Ridge and Crandall. And they said that they have a greater presence. The Festival of the Strait is going well. We have put our final schedule will be up tomorrow. We have a few SAT meetings. The SAT has moved. We have an audit committee meeting tomorrow. As far as the SAT goes, we have a fare reduction right now with SAT that I have the sheets here, and Councilor Macquarie has them also. That's a fare reduction rate for people that need it. So that's my report.
Just to follow up for Festival of Strait and the program, Alan McMaster's office would like a copy once it's out and ready for public viewing, as well as the reporter. Well, the CA, Sebastian. I don't know what's so funny. I'm so tired. I can't even first.
That's my,
Okay, and also the reporter was asking for a copy, so I just wanted to pass that information on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, Councilor Corey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to report on dates of meetings that I did participate in. May 20th, we did have a SAP board meeting. And the most recent one was on June 17th. And as Councilman Douglas said, we had made a decision at that point to relocate our offices from the business park to the Woodrow Law Building here on Pitt Street. And that move, with the support and assistance of town staff, happened today. We got the furniture all moved and we're set up in that new office. June 6th was the Eastern County Regional Library Board meeting. The 8th was the Richmond Housing Coalition meeting. And prior, and on the 8th as well, was the Joint Development Commission meeting.
Deputy Mayor Coyne.
May 11th, Parks and Rec. May 25th, I attended the Chamber Spring Awards. 26th with Eastern District Planning. The 31st was the festival. June 14th was the festival, and yesterday the airport.
Your Worship, most meetings were all mentioned, except for the audit committee meeting that's coming up next week. Tomorrow.
I answer that.
I didn't hear it.
Randy Lake.
Yeah, we had a utility meeting, and we also have a waterfront meeting coming up.
Yeah, but all of the other meetings are mentioned in the report I have circulated. Feel free to reach out to me tomorrow at reasonable hour if you have any questions. So is council okay with me moving the Friends United request forward to the public meeting? Perfect, let's move on then. CAO reports, all of those reports have been circulated. Do council have any questions with regard to those reports? Would you like staff to run through them?
No, no questions.
I have no questions.
Go ahead, Mark.
I have no questions.
Oh, you have, I thought you said you have a question.
No, your worship, I read them. I have no questions.
I will say that the reports are very good and thorough, so much so that we do not require a review this evening. And of course, if there are any questions, then we can pass those on to staff in the next couple of days. Under other business, we have building permit amendment. Ta-da! Oh my God, what is that counselor's name? He's been so quiet.
So I have a request to increase building permit fees. They haven't been increased for 10 years. It's the last time that they were.
We should have told you.
Sorry, John. Last time they were increased was 10 years ago. And the permit fee is based on square footage. So right now, the percentage of the permit fee to the cost of construction has decreased. So 10 years ago, to get the building permit on a $250,000 home, it worked out to be about 0.18% of the total cost of construction, so less than a 0.2%. It's decreased continually as the cost of construction has gone up to where now it's 0.07% of the cost of building a whole house.
I feel like you can ask for anything right now. We're saying yes to the rest.
I don't feel that I was being business. But I think, just, kind of the increase that I'm looking at is $2 per $1,000 worth of construction value. It's the same as town of Bloomsbury. It's Bridgewater's is $3 per $1,000 of construction. Just to, and for council's information, because of the intermunicipal agreement, these fees are going to come in place July 1st regardless. So that really the decision for council is whether or not you want to pay the difference or if you want to have the contractors.
I feel like
their own.
You had it such a low, John. I think we're fine to move this forward as a motion. Does anybody have any questions before John can leave the council chambers?
So Inverness, Richmond, Antigonish County, Antigonish Town have all approved it.
Sure.
And then you, and then Victoria County is.
John, do you need to remain for the special public meeting?
I would like the motion, yeah.
Sure, no problem.
So we have the motion, so we can do that. So we have a motion that's on slides and we have a motion for the approval of the bylaw changes.
You're welcome to stay, but
So it's up to you if you want to.
It's up to you.
So we're going to read those.
But the motion is on the, you've got the motion?
It's on, it's
I'd
there.
like to stay, but.
If we wait a little longer,
I feel-
it will be the 22nd if we wait a little longer.
I feel like you're right. I might as well stick around and sign the document. All right, have a good night, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so just simply put, for under other business, the Allen J Airport Strategy Session, next steps. I wanted to make sure everybody had access to the information post-session. My ask to council is your support for a letter that we can send on behalf of town council to Minister Susan Corkum-Greek, the Minister of Economic Development, asking for consideration to be made for the Allen J McEachran Regional Airport. Lots of support has been given to Stanfield, to McCurdy, and with the wonderful opportunities that have evolved out of that strategy session, we're just a letter letting her know how much, how important this asset is, and looking for financial support from that department. What is the wishes of, if somebody wants to make the motion, or in, I'll move it, consensus? Okay, perfect. I can't even read that.
Dedication of benches and trees, there's actually, America's been approached by a family that wants to dedicate a bench on the waterfront. Talked about that at Waterfront. We're trying to come up with a number. We've looked at St. FX's policy, Truro's policy. Typically, they charge the full cost of the bench and installation. Bench and installation, the benches that we're using right now are very expensive. And installation is about $2,000. So what we're suggesting is that we ask on a temporary basis, anyway, we ask for a donation of $1,000, and the plaque will stay there for the life of the bench. So once that bench is no longer usable, it's taken away, then the plaque gets given back, or they can rededicate something else. So that would be the request, would be $1,000 donation for the ability for a family to put a plaque on a bench. The other thing is we'll come back in the fall with a policy on naming of buildings and spaces and of dedication of benches and trees and that type of thing. We had Destination Reed Street had an attempt, and it seemed to be way too expensive. So
we have to scale back.
Yeah, we have to scale way back.
So is that just presented as information for now, or do you need?
I have a motion that's coming up in the next draft.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
The $1,000, does that include the plaque?
Yes.
Okay. So when Gordy contacts the family in BC, can he give the total cost of the bench and installation? Like it's $2,000 or $3,000, and it's $1,000 for a donation to dedicate that to the family.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, sorry, Your Worship,
I think Councilman
Okay,
Hayes first. Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, Your Worship, that I know when we put the benches over at the Cenotaph, the names on them, it cost $1,000 then. That was probably 15 years ago, just for the ones that were there then. So $1,000 is a good price.
So the cost for the bench is how much? So the installations, did you say the installation was?
I think we're estimating about $2,000. So Aaron.
Benches, I think when we, through you, Your Worship, I think we purchased them a few years ago with Destination Reed Street. They were close to, I think, $2,000 for the bench itself. So, and I think that probably included shipping, but depended on how many you were getting, or so they could be upwards of $2,500 shipping probably to get here.
Great. Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? I would ask for recess for the summer, so motion of adjournment.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, committee of the whole is adjourned. Things went off a little bit off the rails there in the tail end of that recording.